who is this degenerate day trader, or you were a grandma who just put one Bitcoin on there, or, more likely the grandson, he treated all the accounts the same. So when everyone came running for the money, they just withdrew until nothing was left. And ultimately, because they had lost billions of dollars, it left billions of dollars in credit claims, basically. They didn't have the money. And so now it's trying to be sorted out by the guy who literally unraveled Enron. And he says, this lawyer goes, it's worse than Enron.
I watched the new CEO, talk about it.
Yeah.
About him trying
that's John Ray.
Yeah. Trying to unravel it. And it's amazing. It's amazing that things with this amount of money can get this far sideways before anyone knows what's going on.
This is the problem with offshore accounts and stuff. Actually, his whole technique of shifting the blame onto Alameda and I don't control Alameda. I've seen something very similar. I'm investigating this Ponzi scheme that's offshore. And one of the first things the guy does is he controls it, but he renounces ownership. He goes, oh, I'm passing it off to some sham director. And he goes, I don't have anything to do. I don't know. Where's the money? I don't know. But he controls everything. And so it's this is the tactic of these offshore companies is you put the right people in charge who are going to take the fall, you resign, and then you blame it on them later when everything goes wrong. His problem, though, is Caroline Ellison flipped on him.
So she definitely flipped on him.
She was smart. Yeah. She cooperated. That her and I believe Gary Wang were big executives. They're cooperating. They pled guilty. They're cooperating with the feds. I mean, they did the smart thing, which is something like this happens, you shut up. You don't say anything.
Right.
And then you point at your boss. I mean, that's basically what they did.
Oof.
Which they for sure did stuff wrong, too. You do not get to that level and not know that things were wrong.
Well, reading her tweets about amphetamine use was pretty wild, too. The whole scene was wild. The fact that they were all living together and fucking each other in this giant penthouse, this $40 billion penthouse. The things, it's insane. It's really... I almost wish it wasn't a scam. I've said this before because I root for nerds to be that successful, that you're just completely living outside the norms of society, just fucking each other on amphetamines and making billions of dollars. It sounds like a great story if it wasn't illegitimate.
Yeah, ultimately that's the problem. Sam was just hopped up on amphetamines playing League of Legends while on investor calls. At the time, that was seen as this charming, genius thing.
On calls.
You could hear even actually, okay, so this is funny. They found his League of Legends account, and during some of the calls after it was a fraud, you could hear him clicking in the background. Click, 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 click. He's playing League. They tracked his account. He's playing League while on calls about the failure of FTX.
Wow.
Just imagine the arrogance.
Is that arrogance or is it just pure addiction? I think, those multiplayer games, those, online role-playing games, that's what that is, right? It's I think it's is it a MOBA? I used to play a variant of League, so I know it's fun, but it's not fun to the point. Look, this guy's whole thing was I'm this effective altruist. I'm this guy who's going to maximize good in the world, and that was his reason for working all the time. I mean, that's the justification to be hopped up on amphetamines is maximize productivity, maximize human happiness. You can't do that and then say, oops, I played a little too much of my video games and lost billions of dollars. This doesn't fly. Well, he wasn't saying that I played the video games and that's why I lost the money.
But after the fact, he's still playing video games and you're can you have the decency to get off the video game and talk to people?
So bizarre. It's just so bizarre that so many people got duped. And I felt the same way about Bernie Madoff. I'm not a financially aware person. I'm not into the market. I don't follow these things. So when I see something like that go down, I'm like, how did he get Steven Spielberg? How does someone like a Bernie Madoff or Sam Bankman-Fried, how does he get these people to do this? And in the FTX case, how much of it was getting celebrities to endorse the platform?
It's huge. This is what I wanted to say. the more I study this stuff, and you start to have repeat occurrences, like I just cover stuff all the time, and you see echoes of the same thing. I just had somebody just a couple of days ago, I was interviewing for this new scheme we're looking at, and he said, I never understood how Bernie Madoff got people because it seems so preposterous. And then I fell for something very similar. And what I notice with all of these things, the thread is you believe, it's kind of too good to be true, but the social proof is overwhelming. And it overwhelms your kind of like alarm bells. So the social proof is a combination of things. So first of all, it's this guy who drives a Toyota. So you go like, well, why does he need to scam me if he's driving a Toyota, right? Then it's like, which Sam Bankman-Fried did. Then it's like, okay, Tom Brady backs him. Well, Tom Brady's got to have some guys who are looking into this. And then it's like, well, BlackRock backed him. Well, BlackRock definitely has some guys who looked into it. Right. It's Sequoia Capital. They said he was... might be one of the first like trillionaires or whatever. Like he's such a great entrepreneur. They think he's such a genius. It might have been one of the A1Z guys, or I'm blanking on the name right now. But
A1Z, what is that?
No. I'm sorry. I'm blanking on. It's this famous. I'm gonna remember it right after I get out of here. It's one of the famous investment funds. They invested in a bunch of NFT projects. Mark Andreessen, I think, is the guy who runs it.
Jamie's looking it up.
I thought I knew it off the top of my head, and now I don't want to say the wrong one. A16Z.
A1Z. A16Z. I can't. It was one of those, Sequoia or A16Z. One of them wrote this glowing review of Sam, basically saying he's going to be one of the first trillionaires. So all these guys, basically, a lot of these people backed Sam with the highest endorsements. And so if you're just an average person, you're thinking, well, how much more due diligence can I do than all these other guys? All these other guys buy into him.
Right.
And then they themselves are kind of also looking at each other, being like, well, that guy did it. Like, what? It's the hottest deal around, right? Kevin O'Leary's in. So you kind of think you're swimming safely with like other savvy investors. And that's what ultimately gets you to buy in. Bernie Madoff is very similar. I mean, he was, really well regarded in Wall Street. So when people invested with him, they knew the returns were insane, but it wasn't like he was some random fly-by-night guy. He was well respected in the Wall Street space. People thought he might take over the SEC after the current person had stepped down. They thought he was going to take it over. Whoa. He's one of the leaders at the NASDAQ. I mean, he was one of the go-to guys. And so you thought, well, I invest with Bernie, I can't lose. It's almost, betting on the house. The house always wins, right? So when FTX was taking off, it just seemed like everyone who was someone was backing him. So then it was okay. And then I think a lot of these people deferred to their other friends. They're all saying it's okay. Let me put money in. And it's just a huge case study that just because other people fall for something doesn't mean you're safe. You have to do, I hate to say do your own research because that's such an overused, scammy phrase. It's actually such a phrase that, it's almost useless.
Chemtrails.
Let me say this. If it's too good to be true, if they're offering market returns that you want to believe in, you go, man, I want to believe this is real. Don't invest. That's a bad idea.
People were calling bullshit, though. Just like they were calling, there was a few people that were wary that were calling bullshit on Bernie Madoff, and there was a few people that were standing out and saying none of this makes sense.
Right.
And who were those people?
So there were a few people. There was a Matt Levine interview with Sam Bankman-Fried. He didn't call him a fraud outright, but he's like, hey, it seems like you're in the Ponzi business and business is good.
Whoa. And what did he say to that?
He's like, well, think of it like a box. And, you tell a bunch of investors, hey, if you put money in this box, we can get some money out. We can give you this yield. He starts to explain this thing that sounds exactly like a Ponzi scheme. And so ultimately, Matt Levine's like, yeah, this doesn't really make a lot of sense. But again, it stopped short of this is a fraud because, no one knew. There's a bunch of backing. So I made a video at the time being like, this crypto CEO just describes a Ponzi scheme. And that video has aged so well because it's people are like, oh, it was all true. But people were outright calling it a fraud. Like Mark Cohodes, he's a famous short seller. He was calling that a fraud early. I have a buddy of mine. He goes by Dirty Bubble Media on Twitter. He's like one of the Anon Twitter accounts. He was calling it a fraud. There were things that were coming out, like questions about, okay, they say they have all this money. Where on chain is it? So like the blockchain, everything's publicly, you can see it, right? It's all at some address. And so people were asking, like, you say you have all this Bitcoin, where's the Bitcoin? You say you have all this Ethereum, where's the Ethereum? And why is so much of your balance sheet made up of your own tokens? It's a big question. So one of the things that FTX had done, and a lot of companies were doing at the time, but FTX was sort of the worst offender, is let's say I give you a loan, Joe. So an unsecured loan would be I give you $1 million and I don't ask for anything. So if you default on that loan, I'm out $1 million. Another way is I ask for, okay, I'll take some equity in the studio if something goes wrong, right? So I cover my butt if you default on it. Now, this is what was going on in crypto. They're called collateralized loans. But what FTX was doing was they were saying, hey, like, we'll take $1 million from you, but instead of giving you collateral like dollars or like some asset, we'll give you FTT tokens, which is their own invented coin. And that should have value if anything goes wrong. And people were accepting that as value. But the problem is when at the exact moment FTX can't pay you back is the exact moment that FTT becomes worthless. Mm. So you think you have all this collateral, you think you have this backstop because on the books it's worth, X dollars. Let's say it's like worth $5 a coin. But what you're not realizing is the real risk is when FTX can't pay you back, they probably can't pay anyone back. Everyone loses confidence. Everyone sells their FTT tokens. No one wants to buy it. It's worth nothing.
So how did this all fall apart?
Great question. So it's really interesting because it was like a battle between FTX and one of their competitors, Binance. So the owner of Binance is, I think it's Changpeng Zhao. He goes by CZ on Twitter. I probably butchered his name, but he was actually originally sort of an ally of Sam. So he invested in FTX early on, put $100 million in, and eventually got paid out like $2 billion.
Whoa.
Yeah. Some of it was in this FTT token, though. So they have a bunch of FTT, right? And so it's like November was when all this stuff went down. And a report comes out from CoinDesk where it shows FTX's balance sheet. It shows actually what tokens they have. For one of the first times, it was kind of really, everyone got to look at it all at once in one place. And people notice, like, wait a second. A lot of their assets are just their own tokens. Like they had a Serum token, which they control most of, FTT. So it looks like, if you just look at their assets, it looks like they're covering their liabilities. They owe customers $10 billion. Looks like they have $10 billion. But like most of this $10 billion is just their own tokens. So CZ takes this opportunity to kind of spread some, sort of information about that. He says, hey, we're actually going to sell most of our FTT that we got from that deal. And we're going to sell it. We don't know what's going on there. And all of a sudden it starts this firestorm because people are like, there was already all this worry in the past. That summer, there had been a bunch of companies that collapsed and people had never thought FTX. It was kind of the first time anyone thought FTX could maybe not have the money. So CZ says, hey, maybe they don't have the money. I don't know, whatever. I'm just going to sell like $2 billion worth.
But he knew what he was doing.
Oh, for sure. He's a shark. He's a shark. He knows what he's doing.
What was the conflict between the two of them that led him to do that?
The conflict was, it's a great question. The conflict was ultimately that Sam was trying to get some regulations passed, and he knew all the crypto people were trying to control regulations to favor their individual business situation. And so CZ felt like he was being cut out in Washington. And I think there was like a tweet from Sam saying like, oh, like I'll see you the next time you're in Washington or something like that. But like it was kind of a dig because he knows CZ can't go to Washington. Like he'd be afraid of being indicted, or I don't really understand why he can't go, but he can't go to America. So Sam was meeting with regulators. CZ felt cut out, like he was basically going to get a bad deal with regulators. They were all Sam was working really closely with regulators to try to get regulations passed. And CZ felt like he was cut out. So that stirred up this like battle between them. And ultimately, Sam goes, oh, you won like our battle. And people were like, is it a battle when you lose billions of dollars of customer money? Like, well, how can you view this as a battle? Like, but he viewed it as like we're sparring partners. Like, and you won this round or you won the war.
Because he thinks this is going to go on forever. Initially, he thought he was going to be able to figure out a way to pull all the company's assets together and
I think
make everybody sound and repay everyone and go back to making money again.
I don't think he thought he would repay everyone, but everyone thought like, oh, we'll just enter Chapter 11 bankruptcy. We'll restructure the company. We'll reopen. We'll just turn all the debt into new FTT tokens and pay everybody out.
Oh, that's what he thought? He's on amphetamines, right? So he can't be thinking totally clearly and probably overly confident.
Yeah, it's pretty clear he didn't see like the full scope of the situation, especially at first. It seemed like he thought, he was like saying FTX US was fine. And then FTX US went bankrupt. And he's the one who put it into bankruptcy. And then he's telling everyone, oh, no, the money's actually still there. I mean, he was constantly giving a conflicting narrative of was going on. Now he's still like trying to say he did nothing wrong. He maintains he's innocent. And right now, actually, the big like kind of scandal now is they're finding a bunch of campaign finance violations because he was trying to influence politics, U.S. politics. I mean, it's insane how deep FTX's influence went from the Bahamas reaching into the United States while technically not really being regulated by the United States.
Yeah, they were the number 2 donor to the Democratic Party.
That's right, but
also to the Republicans.
This is what's wild. So
yeah.
Sam knew publicly in our current American climate, like it's kind of like, okay, it's a little bit chic to be donating to Democrats. You can do that without too much, negative press. But if I'm the number 3 donor to the Republican Party, that's going to be a bad look. So he decides to donate dark to a Republican, like to Republicans. And part of the accusation is he knowingly did this through one of his executives, Ryan Salami or something. I think that's his last name. Salami. I don't know. I just don't know how to pronounce it. But he was like, the number 3 donor to the Republican Party. But it was all orchestrated through Sam. Sam wanted to basically influence politics by just donating. And the idea is you donate to both sides, you can never lose, right?
Yeah.
If you have your hands in both pockets. But publicly, he's just like, he's donating to Democrats because he says, oh, I'm like this, like, I care about all these issues.
Yeah.
But it's like even more cynical than just buying one party is buying both, lying about it so that you can get all the good press of like caring about all these social issues while also not caring at all. And ultimately, one of the ways, like even some of the candidates they donated to were through like a third employee we didn't even know about. And they were like donating through him for like all these LGBTQ plus causes. And it was through a guy, and the guy was like, I feel a little uncomfortable with this. And they said, well, we don't have anyone trustworthy at FTX we can donate through who's gay. So like, can you do this?
So someone had to be gay to do it? Like...
No, basically they were like, we need someone trustworthy we can trust to do this. So, hey, you're going to be the guy. Like, we're just going to do a few transactions through your name. That just came out in a press release. It's the new charges. He was basically like they call them straw donors because it's like, if I give money to you to give money to a politician on my behalf, you're a straw donor. You're not really a donor. So Alameda was using customer funds to pay off politicians in order to try to get favorable regulation for, I guess, offshore crypto exchanges, right?
And so these campaign finance, these violations, like what exactly, like what are the regulations in terms of like what you're allowed to do and donate, and how did he violate them?
So I think the big violation was you're not supposed to, like, if you're Alameda Research and you're funneling money through a personal investor, that I think is the problem. They're actually campaign finance laws I've heard are pretty weak. I forget the name of the law, but it was passed in like the early 2000s, 2010s maybe, where it actually became very easy to donate dark, where it's like you can donate through super PACs, political action committees, and you can donate as much as you want, and you don't have to be, your name has to appear nowhere. And so that's actually what he said in one of the interviews. He goes, no one believes me when I said I donated dark because no one believes anyone would be like, everyone wants the credit for donating. No one believes that I just do it on the sly. And that's ultimately what he was doing. But it also looks like he was donating through some of his executives. And I mean, the whole thing was shady all the way down. The person's not named in the report who was donating to Democrats. We know the one donating to Republicans was Ryan Salami. But that person eventually said, well, hey, can we restructure all this money that went through me like a loan so that we can, say that I took a loan out and I was donating so we didn't violate any laws. They never ended up doing that. But it was very clear the internal conversations were they knew they were committing fraud. They knew they were doing things wrong. And this idea was, well, no one's going to catch us, right? Nobody's ultimately going to find out what we're doing here.
How many more of these are out there in the world?
As big as FTX, we don't know. I mean, there's only a few that are bigger. Like there's Binance, very opaque company. We don't exactly know.
And what has happened to Binance since FTX went down? Because it seems like they received additional scrutiny, right? Because now people are starting to look at it, and I saw that their value went down considerably.
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren wrote a letter to them. They're being looked at much more closely. I mean, ultimately, all of these things are so opaque in the sense that you can know their assets. So it's like a big thing recently in crypto. They'll say, hey, we're going to show you proof of reserves. What does that mean? They mean we'll show you on-chain all our assets. You can check yourself. Like, I have $1 billion in USDC. Well, that's great. But it doesn't matter if I have $1 billion in crypto, Bitcoin, whatever, if I owe $2 billion.
Right.
That's what ultimately matters is how much do you have on deposits that you owe out? And so with Binance, we don't really know. The only one we have a little bit more of a look into is Coinbase. It seems like they're, legitimate. But so much of the problem with crypto is we don't know how much of this stuff is money laundering. We don't know how much of this stuff is like outright the proceeds of criminals. I mean, we know that these criminals do launder their money through a lot of these crypto exchanges, through mixers. It's just sort of this big mess right now, and we're waiting for regulators to figure it out. Finally, regulators have stepped on the scene, but right now it's just this kind of wild, wild west of you're just having to trust these shady offshore entities that they're telling the truth. Binance says they're fine. They show proof of reserves, but what are their liabilities? It's hard to know. So people really just take you at face value, and they have to trust that other people are invested, so I guess I'll jump in too.
And that's why the celebrities are important. And that's why
it's a huge part of it.
The connection to BlackRock is important.
Huge part. Yes, because they're the legitimacy that says, hey, I too am safe because Tom Brady's got his money there. So I can put my money
So
there.
the lure is like how Bitcoin used to be worth very little, and then one time it was with the high of Bitcoin, it was like 70,000 or something like
60 plus, yeah.
So that's the lure. The lure is you buy in for pennies, and one day you're insanely rich. I'm sure you know about that one guy who lost a hard drive and who's paying people to go through a landfill to try to find his hard drive because there's billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin on that hard drive.
Yeah, people lose their crypto keys all the time. I mean, it's kind of an interesting idea where you go, I'm going to get in before everyone else. But a lot of people found out about crypto the same time the mainstream media, everyone else did. So by the time they're actually investing,
it's too late.
It's too late. I think the most fair case you could make about crypto is sometimes national currencies aren't a great idea and you want an alternative. So look at the Turkish lira, right? The inflation rate, I think, is 75% or something like that. It's an unimaginable, it's just out of control inflation. And if you hold on to your Turkish lira, you're in for a bad time because every day it's getting less valuable. So the question is, what do you do if you're in that country making money? If you want to store your money somewhere else, how do you store it? So there's this idea of these alternative currencies that are kind of interesting. And then there's some arguments that hey, if you're someone like me, I have 2 employees and both of them are overseas. One of them's in London, one of them's in Ukraine. And so for me, I have to pay them and, I have to do this wire transfer and it's kind of expensive. to do these, like you pay all these fees for wire transfers. So the idea is like, okay, well, if you have crypto, those wire fees can go down. And instead of taking, maybe a day or something, it'll take like 5 minutes or 3 minutes. So I don't want to give off the idea that like there's nothing here. But the problem is that with the lack of regulation and the ability to send peer-to-peer, which means like you and I can just send money to each other directly, no middleman, there's also a really huge opportunity for fraud, scams, and basically like, shell games where you're hiding the money.
Yeah.
You're saying, oh, invest in this. This is going to become valuable later, but you actually own a bunch of that token. Then you sell it off and then the price plummets. So you thought you had a bunch of money, but actually it's worth nothing. Like there's all these new scams that have emerged as a result of people getting interested in this idea of an alternative money system. Especially in our modern age, it seems like you can understand where they're coming from, the average person. They're like, look, I've been screwed by the banks. Every time the government's printing a bunch of money, where do I go? Right? You can understand the appeal, but it's just like you went from the arms of one huckster to another. Like it's almost to something worse. There are reasons that our banks have a bunch of anti-money laundering laws. There's a reason that they have all sorts of finance laws. It's not for their safety, it's for your safety. It's like they need to, fight. Like one of the best ways to fight crime is at their wallets, like take away their banking. And crypto has just really revitalized that because, now if you're some criminal, laundering money has just never been easier. Instead of taking $100,000 across the border or wiring it where it can get held up by a bank, now I can just send you $100K. It's going to take me 5 minutes.
So that's why when people like kidnap people's data and things along those lines, they like to get paid through crypto.
Ransomware, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. Because before it was like, okay, you need to use like Western Union or sort of one of these these places where you can kind of send money without too much scrutiny. But even Western Union has been they've been getting kind of pinched a little bit, like, hey, you guys got to stop allowing all of this. But in crypto, because there's no middleman, because there's no one who controls like Bitcoin, like no one can say like no to a transaction. Now it's like there's nothing to stop you from sending that money, and then you can take that money and you can send it to what's called a mixer, which is this like fancy language for a way to like anonymize your transaction. Like you put $100,000 into this little mixer, and then it sends $100,000 out later, and nobody knows where that money came from.
What is a mixer? How does that work?
It's interesting. So the most famous example is Tornado Cash. They've recently been shut down, but the idea of
the idea of putting your money into Tornado Cash.
Yeah, it's wild.
Is there a better analogy for losing your house?
What's funny? Yeah.
Good Lord.
The idea of these mixers was you'd anonymize your transactions. So like, let's say I put like let's say I have Ethereum, one Ether into this mixer, right? This pool of money. A bunch of people are putting one Ethereum into this thing. So all this money's going in, and then you basically wait. And as you're waiting, Ethereum's going out everywhere. A bunch of people are withdrawing, right? Because they're also taking their money out.
Right.
By the time you withdraw, there's nothing tying your Ethereum to your particular address to like this random external address because you send it to a different one. So before, it's like if I send you $1 and then you send that dollar on, we can easily trace that back to me, right? It's like here. But if I send $1 to you and everyone's sending you $1, and then you're sending $1 to all these other wallets, then it's impossible to know which of those new wallets my dollar's from. It's like it's crazy. It's a crazy idea that these basically nerds in cryptography thought of, which is it's brilliant. It is brilliant because it is basically it's almost impossible to trace. But ultimately, the outcome of that is like, yeah, I encrypt all your data. Joe, send me. I know you're this successful podcaster. I want you to send me $10 million, or your data's lost forever. And you're like, call the police, and you go, hey, track this guy, and they're like, to what? To a Bitcoin wallet? To a Ethereum wallet? What are we tracking here? and then it goes to some mixer somewhere, and then we don't know where it goes after that.
So when Sam Bankman-Fried was working with regulators, when he was trying to impose regulations or encourage regulations, how could that have benefited him as opposed to Binance? Like, what could they have possibly done to make it easier or more profitable for him?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would he do that?
I'm not as familiar with the regulation side of things. People were talking about that a lot. What I know is everyone's always interested in pulling up the ladder after them and like building the kind of the rule book around like, hey, like if you're from this certain jurisdiction that we're a part of, you're fine. If you're not, like if you're from this one, you're not okay. Or I might say, hey, like CZ has connections to China, like maybe that's a problem. Or CZ has connections to here, maybe that's a big deal. But I'm from the Bahamas and I'm American, so that might be fine. I mean, everyone's always interested in the regulations benefiting them. The challenge now, though, is, you know, a lot of people had backed that bill, and now that it was all a fraud, or the guy who basically pushed it was a fraud, now they're like trying to retool it, and it's like sort of what's left after the guy who kind of was spearheading this bill like was a fraud. It's kind of tough. I was actually randomly, like, some senator's office reached out to me, and they're like, what do you think about this? And I was like, I don't know, man. You guys have to, this is y'all's thing to figure out. Ultimately, y'all have to, my feeling is offshore entities should not be, they're not subject to our rules. How can you allow offshore, like, yeah, I don't know. It's very strange. And these offshore entities were also using like U.S. branches. Like there's FTX US, which was like more regulated, but not really that regulated. It's a strange time, man, to be covering crypto, because I tried to tell people for years that this scam problem, this fraud problem, was going to undo sort of everything. Like if you don't root out the scams, you don't find ways to solve that, this is never going to work, because if the money system has to be safe. Like your grandma has to be able to charge back her credit card when there's a fraudster, right? Like, or this whole thing doesn't work. You can't rely on people being technically savvy in order to, make something work. If it's going to go to the public, you have to solve all these issues. And unfortunately, we saw crypto kind of go mainstream before they had really taken that. I mean, maybe some of them were taking it seriously, but not enough.
So if FTX didn't encourage regulation and CZ didn't get upset at that and sell off all his tokens, would they be still solvent today or still in operation today? Would they not crash, or was this inevitable?
It was inevitable. So something to understand. FTX was insolvent long before it was realized that they were insolvent. Right? So that's the issue. Was FTX's problem was not CZ. Ultimately, he's kind of the guy who like pushed over the house made on sticks or something. Like it was never, the problem was the foundation was wrong from the beginning. If you don't have enough deposits to cover withdrawals, you just don't have the money, right? Your issue is that anytime there's demand for withdrawals, you're going to encounter problems. So it was going to be inevitable anytime any story broke that showed that maybe they're not as healthy as they should be. There would have been a run on the banks and people would have found out. It's just like, when are they going to find out? It's just he happened to be the final straw, if that makes sense.
So someone would have figured it out and someone would have started dumping their coin.
Yeah, people already, I mean, even leading up, like CZ gets a lot of the credit for it, but like already, like a day before they kind of shut down, myself and some other people were saying, like, we think they're insolvent, because we had taken a look at their numbers and we said, there's no way they have the money for this. They don't have the tokens. So we were warning people, hey, this is probably insolvent. Get your money out. But CZ ultimately was the big, like, he was the most notorious and like well-respected person in the space, to where people thought, okay, well, if he's saying it, he's a guy who only says positive things about crypto because he's a crypto executive. So if he's saying there might be problems, there's probably some problems. But
Binance hasn't had similar problems.
No, they've had a few runs and they've covered withdrawals. I mean, so it's just the problem is a lot of it's a black box. I mean, so it's like things are good for now. Yeah.
You don't know.
That was the problem with FTX. Like, they had hidden all their numbers. Like, Sam had literally had a $10 billion account that he mislabeled with Alameda Research.
Mislabeled?
Yeah, he called it fiat at FTX. But it was a $10 billion hole.
What do you mean by mislabeled?
Well, it was on a spreadsheet, Joe. So he was put it on a spreadsheet for their balance sheet, and he mislabeled the account fiat at FTX. And so what prosecutors are now arguing is he knew, of course, what it was. He deliberately obscured what that was to hide it from people who were trying to take a look at his books. But it's just, that's what I mean by black box. You never know what games these guys are playing. Like, they say, oh, here's sort of like the rough estimate of our balances. But oops, did I tell you about this $10 billion account? Like, I forgot. It's so silly. You find out, like, there were just no adults in that room, and like the few adults that there were like, they had like a criminal lawyer. Well, anyway, I don't think he's actually been convicted of anything. I shouldn't say that. They had this guy, Dan Friedberg. Shady. This guy,
allegedly shady.
Dan Friedberg. No, he's definitely shady. I'll say that. This guy.
What was his? I remember, but what was his?
His whole thing was he did this thing with Ultimate Bet. So he was one of the lawyers. So there's this poker site called Ultimate Bet, and he got caught in this scandal where they had enabled this thing called God Mode on Ultimate Bet, where the CEO could see everybody's hands and play on the site, seeing everybody's hands. So he cleaned up on all his own customers, just basically taking their money. Like, oh, I know exactly when to fold. I know exactly when to bet. So he had God Mode enabled, and then somebody found out about this God Mode. And so the lawyer's like, how do we basically cover this up? Dan Friedberg's like, how do we, what do you want me to do? And he's like, hey, just make this problem go away. This is the CEO. Like, go blame it on somebody else. Go blame it on some third party that got access to our website. Say it was like a glitch or something. And so that is the experience of the lawyer that FTX then hires, is like being complicit on a leaked private call, trying to cover up this God Mode scam. That is his background. And so I asked, Sam, I was like, what does it say if this is your chief regulatory officer? This guy who enabled who helped cover up God Mode. And he's like, well, I don't want to comment on other, people, or it's just like.
Well, how does he skate on that? Like, how does a guy like that not wind up getting indicted?
I ask myself that every day. There's so many. Is
it a matter of time, or is it he's gotten away with it?
So many of these scams are like these issues of either regulators not having time, not having the resources, not having sort of like, it's maybe not big enough. They're good people, a lot of the people going after these guys, but it's like trying to catch everyone who's speeding. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like people get away with it. It's just there's too many people doing it. And you'll catch some people, but ultimately a lot of people will just basically skate by, even though by all rights they should have been, caught. In my view, what he did was criminal. That's why I started. But it hasn't been prosecuted or anything like that. But he's on a leaked private call. Everyone can go listen to it yourself. It's just this shocking thing. And I think that shows, like, if you're running a shady empire, like, who's better than a shady lawyer to try to help you cover it up, right?
How did you get involved in what you do?
It's a weird thing.
So when did you start your YouTube channel?
So I started it a few years ago, 2018, 2019.
And what was the first video?
I started as sort of like an interview show, nothing about scams. I had a channel before it. I went to school for chemical engineering and hated it. I was miserable. I was like, I do not want my life to be earning 2% more of a bottom line for ExxonMobil or any chemical. I just wasn't interested. I was like, that's not my life. So I always wanted to sort of, have a voice. And so I started a YouTube channel just doing random videos. I hadn't really found my footing. But throughout my entire life, I had kind of had this relationship with like hucksters and fraud where, when I was in high school, my mom got thyroid cancer, very treatable kind of cancer, and she's fine. But at the time I watched her as she's like, gets this diagnosis, gets swept up with all these hucksters who are telling her that the way to treat thyroid cancer is not surgery. You can just treat it naturally. Just don't worry about, hey, don't listen to the doctors. Don't listen to your general practitioner. You can just treat it with like colloidal silver or with just put a bunch of garlic cloves in the pot. I still remember our house like reeked. She would put 60 cloves of garlic in a stew, and she would drink it up because she thought that would make her better. Ultimately, my dad convinced her, like, you got to get the surgery. Like, this ain't gonna fly. You have to, ultimately get the surgery, which thankfully she did, and she's fine now. She takes medication to replace the hormones her thyroid would generate. But I saw my mom kind of get swept in this thing that I knew was nonsense, but it's sort of like hard. You kind of have to disprove every single, like there's always a new like health guy telling you that there's some new alternative discovery, whatever. And I was like, this is kind of weird. And I was like, why do they hate doctors so much? And it always seems to like end up with a sales pitch. Like it never was like, hey, let me just give you this free thing. It was like always like there's a catch. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really know what I was looking at the time. Then I go to college and all my friends get an MLMs, multi-level marketing, sort of like just like the like, hey, you're going to get rich. So I was always getting invited to these like get rich seminars and I'd go because it was like my friends like said, hey, we have to get somebody, you want to go? And I was like, sure, I'll go. I was like kind of fascinated. And you'd see these guys, they're like, hey, don't work a 9-to-5 job, like be free like me. And I'm like, you're here on a Sunday at like 5 p.m. How free are you really? Like, you're just kind of grifting here. And so, but you'd see them in nice cars. And so I was like, what am I looking at? And then as I'm doing my YouTube show, I'm like, I get fed a bunch of ads, like get rich quick schemes. Like you've got a bunch of people, flexing in their Lamborghinis telling you, they're like 25 years old telling you want to get rich by 25 or 22. I'll show you. I made $1 million. I'm a millionaire by the time I'm 23 years old. Just buy my course. My course is, $2,000. Pay me $2,000. I'll teach you to get rich quick. So I saw all this and my experiences up to that point, it kind of led me to like, I want to say something, but why is nobody saying anything? It just seemed like there was this, these people pitching this stuff and nobody was talking about it. So I made this random video just basically screaming about, all these scammers online. And unlike my previous work, which kind of had resonated, like it had gotten some reactions, but not much. What I noticed is it resonated with people beyond the views, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like I was just like, there was something different about the reaction to it. Like, and victims would reach out to me. They'd be like, hey, I'd been scammed by this guy and I didn't realize what was going on. And you showed me, sort of like how the whole scheme worked. So I decided to start pursuing it step by step. And at first it was like just me discovering like, well, what is this? Well, how does this scheme work? Okay, so I buy this course and then what? What are you saying in the terms of service that means that I can't sue you? You have all these terms of service that basically say none of what I'm saying is true. Like they say they can get you rich in the sales pitch, and then in the terms of service they said results may vary. What's that about? Mm-hmm. I mean, ultimately it's like, and so I realized like, oh, there's this sophisticated way that they're preying on my psychology and they're setting it up with like, I used to be broke like you. Well, that's a strategy. Mm. A lot of these guys were never broke. Right? It's just part of the story you have to tell to be really effective. It's like, I used to be just like you, Joe, but then, I found out that doing Amazon drop shipping is the way to make millions of dollars. And, I used to fail, but by these little tricks, I found out how to be successful. And if you invest with me, I'll save you time. You could do it yourself, Joe. You could do it, but it's going to take you 5 years. Get with me, and I'm going to shortcut your success. 2 months. You're going to be making 5 figures a month, 10 months, maybe 6 figures a month. And I've done it for people before. That's the social proof. I've shown people how to do this. You can watch them. These are real people, Joe. You can be just like them. And so I started watching this and I started like seeing it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so interesting. I start covering it. And then I start to get cease and desist letters. They don't like that. So they start to send me, they say, hey, you better shut up or we're going to sue you. And I was like, okay. I'm not going to stop making these videos. I just kept making the videos, and ultimately they never did. But I start doing that, and after I cover get rich quick schemes for a while, I start hearing about these tokens, and they're like, "Hey, selling courses Like, it's always the new grift. You always have to find, because people figure it out. Like, they go like, oh, that actually doesn't work. Like, hey, drop shipping is not actually like this incredible business that you thought it was, that you're going to get rich easily. So don't do that. Go do crypto. You got to get into crypto now. And then it became NFTs for a while. But like, so I eventually like pivoted into this crypto direction and learned all about that. But it started just from a curiosity about scammers. And I wanted somebody to say something. Because I was just like, why does this make some people tens of millions of dollars and nothing happens? Why are some of these people making hundreds of millions of dollars? People are miserable at the end of it and nothing happens. And that was the start of my show.
So you start just doing interviews about what? Like you didn't start doing this. You started doing just like a normal interview show?
I was just doing a normal interview show with a few of my buddies. And it just was kind of, I was just trying to find my way. I was just trying to like, even before that, I had done a show where I was like trying to break down these topics. I was like researching addiction, and I was just like trying to, make some digestible piece of media around like addiction, right? Because like I always was interested in communicating complicated ideas in a digestible way. I just felt like, man, there's so much cool science out there. There's so many cool ideas out there. How do we communicate this? So I did that for a while. Then I started like CoffeeZilla was like this spinoff channel. And I was like, let me do some interviews. And then it was also my place. I just threw things at the wall. So then that's where I threw one of my I just like ranted about this thing against the wall, and it kind of like stuck. And I just enjoyed it. I was like, man, screw these people, like who are taking advantage of like,
Yeah.
And what was sick about it is they're not taking advantage of rich people, because rich people will sue you.
Yeah.
If you screw them over, rich people will sue you.
Right.
They're taking advantage of like people who they're like at $10,000 or $2,000. That's like all their disposable income. And they're betting on these hucksters to dig themselves out of these situations. And that's one of the things I try to tell people is like a lot of the success of these things is it's not even about greed. It's about desperation. When you fall for these things, a lot of times, you're like my mom. Like the reason she fell for these things is she so badly didn't want surgery that she was willing to believe anything, right? Because she's like, if you tell me, and I have cancer, and you tell me I can be better, and you tell me it's $10,000, you tell me it's $1, I'll pay you either way, right? And so people are financially, they feel like they're terminally ill financially. They're just like, I don't know how to get out of this. I feel like I have no opportunities. This guy, I'm watching YouTube, I'm trying to better myself, I'm trying to educate myself, and this guy comes on and tells me it's all a click away, right? It's all a credit card swipe away.
What has been the reaction? Like, what has been the most visceral or violent reaction to what you've done and exposed?
I think the biggest story we probably ever broken was either the FTX stuff, but that was already kind of going on. It was probably the Logan Paul story. The CryptoZoo saga. That was a case where, it's just the classic influencer greed story where this guy launches an NFT project, does millions upon millions of dollars in sales, and delivers nothing. He promises the world a fun blockchain game that earns you money, and he did nothing. And the project was left abandoned, and people were like miserable, complaining. No one says it, but
I'm not
they
aware
don't have
of
a voice.
That. I'm kind of aware that you covered it, but I don't know the story.
So let me back up then. So
Okay.
Logan Paul is popular influencer. You know who he
I know
is.
Sure.
So he, along with a lot of influencers, got really interested in like the crypto space, and he had done a coin before that called Dink Doink, which was abandoned shortly after he promoted it. People got invested, goes to zero, right? And he says, well, that's not my project. That was my buddy's project. And then like a month later, he's like, I actually do have a project, excited to announce it. It's called CryptoZoo. It's a fun game. They called it a fun game that earns you money. Basically, the idea is they're going to sell you these two things. Eggs is NFT, and then there's a coin aspect to it called Zoo tokens, okay? So you can buy these Zoo tokens to buy the eggs, and the idea is the eggs will then hatch into animals that will earn passive Zoo tokens. So you can buy eggs with Zoo tokens, and then the eggs will passively earn you Zoo tokens. Does that make sense?
No.
Well, Don't worry, you're kind of actually caught up. So these zoo tokens were basically this passive income. You know, you basically invest up front, and then you're sort of getting the tokens back out, which you can then sell, I guess. So that was the idea pitched to people, and people immediately buy in. They $3 million in NFT sales, tens of millions of dollars in the tokens itself, the zoo tokens. People are so excited about it because it's Logan Paul. And he says this is his project. He's putting his name behind it, his backing behind it, and he's a great marketer. I mean, you got to give the guy credit where credit is due. He's a tremendous marketer. So people get all excited. All of a sudden, the hatch day comes when you're supposed to hatch these eggs, and half the hatching doesn't work.
How does the hatching work? Is it on a computer model?
It was on.
What is it?
It was on the blockchain, so you could your NFTs would turn into different NFTs. They would transform into the animals. They go from an egg to an animal.
How?
It's just blockchain coding. I mean, it's just.
But how do they? Is it predetermined?
Yeah.
How does your egg become an ostrich?
It's just random. It's supposed to be randomly generated animals. So you
might get a rhino. You might get a chicken.
Exactly. And then you could crossbreed your rhino with a chicken and get a ricken or something and get even more tokens. But
is this it?
Yeah, there it is. You get bear shark. So
whale panda.
So people start to
gorilla.
Is this still around?
So they say they're going to go back and fix it now. So Logan, after being not involved for a year, as soon as my video comes out, he goes, "Damn, what a coincidence. I've been working on it. I was going to, make it, launch it." In reality, he hadn't touched it for a very long period of time. But so sorry to back up.
Okay.
The half the eggs don't work, and they're not actually earning anything. The whole time they said they were going to earn you these tokens, right? They're not earning anything. So the promises haven't been fulfilled. There's just sort of all this stuff going on behind the scenes. Logan's quiet. Come to find out, he had hired basically criminals who were selling on the back end, some of the tokens. And he was sort of I don't know what his thing was. I think he realized it's not going to be that successful. Let me move on. I think his mentality was, let me just move on, right? The problem though is you have millions of dollars of investment in a thing that you promoted. You told everyone it was going to make them money, and then you never delivered anything. So my story was basically showing the victims of the scheme, and then in response, he's like, "Well, I'm going to sue you for that."
He said he's going to sue you.
Yeah, he said, "I'll see you in court." And then the backlash against him was so severe that he releases a video saying, "Thank you, CoffeeZilla, for showing the world what happened. And I appreciate it. I responded out of anger, but I'm going to make things right. I'm going to fix the game to what it was supposed to be, and I'm going to pay back $1.7 million. I'm committing $1.7 million to anyone who bought an NFT can get a refund." Now, there's a bit of an issue with that. So that's nice. I actually think it's great that happened, but there's two issues with it. Number one, which is that the NFTs were only a small part of the sales. They actually weren't even half. Because people bought these tokens. So the people who bought tokens get nothing. He's offering, this refund on the NFTs. The other problem is he hasn't refunded the NFTs. I've actually reached out to him twice. It's been over a month since he's done this. So he said he's going to do it. And then the Discord, he's posting in this little chat room with the investors. After he said he was going to do it, he's posted nothing. There's no way to get a refund right now. So I keep asking him "Hey, you promised $1.7 million to these investors. They're all waiting." It's been over, I think it's almost been 2 months now, and there's nothing. So it's he says that he's refunding people, which sounds great for PR, and then it's just radio silence. So what I'm ultimately looking for is some accountability from these guys. They're happy to make money from the endeavors. They're happy to potentially make millions of dollars from these, different projects they're spinning up. But the second accountability is asked for, you can't reach them. So
is it well, I would assume Logan's a very busy guy. And
sure.
I would assume that he probably didn't come up with this on his own. I would assume that someone probably came to him with this project. This is just total assumption, guessing on my part.
So we have text messages from behind the scenes. A lot of people, the people who were responsible for it say Logan kind of spearheaded the idea. And he says he spearheaded the idea.
So it was his idea?
Yeah.
And so he's working with someone, right, that probably assured him that this would work?
Yeah. I mean, he had this team of a few guys who they didn't do much vetting into, and some of them turned out to be criminals. But, my feeling is ultimately, no matter what happens, like when you take people's money, that's what I'm trying to on my show, I'm trying to tell these influencers, when you take people's money, it's different. When you tell them you're going to make them money and you get into the financial investment game, your responsibility is different. You can't just always pass the buck to it was a guy that's not that trustworthy. It's all right, that might be true. Then go fix it. Go hire some more guys that are trustworthy and fix the thing. And I think my experience, because I've talked to Logan, and that's why I know he didn't respond to me, because I texted him. I said, hey, where's this money? He left me on red. But I've talked to him, and when I talk to him, there's just sort of this feeling of, he's like, I just don't want to think about this. I don't want to be, he wants to focus on Prime, which is successful. He doesn't want to be bothered with the victims of the scheme that he ultimately thought of in the first place.
So it's still, is it possible that he's just gathering the money or working out a way to do it legally where it makes sense?
It's very frustrating because, at every turn, it's just sort of it is, I want to say it's possible. We just don't know. And it's just sort of when you promise people refunds, the longer you wait, the less people are actually going to take that refund. If Walmart says, hey, bring in this skull, I'll give you a refund. And you're like, all right, when can I bring it in? And they don't respond to you for 2 months. They know that you're less likely to actually take the refund. So I don't know if he's doing it because he wants less people to get the refund. He probably is busy, but my thought is a transgression of this magnitude where you're playing with people's money and livelihoods, you cannot take it lightly. And that's one of the things is these influencers got into this crypto space. I don't think they fully appreciated they're now dealing with financial investments, and it's not a joke. It's not like a brand deal where if NordVPN isn't as great as they said it was, it's all cool.
Right.
It's your company, and you promise people you're going to make the money, and now you haven't said anything for over a year. Then you say you're going to refund them, and you don't say anything for 2 months. That's an issue.
The whole crypto space and the whole NFT space is filled with weirdos. Everyone that I've talked to that wants to come to me with some idea, it's always very strange. When people have come to, my business manager with financial propositions, they're always, it's logical. It makes sense. Oh, invest in this. This is a fund and it does this and this is how you get a return on your investment. None of that stuff ever made any sense to me. I avoided all of it, luckily. But I was propositioned by multiple different entities about these kind of things. And I was like, I don't know what you're saying. I don't know, why would anybody buy an NFT? It's a non-fungible token, and then you put it in a NFT wallet, and you have this thing. I'm like, but I have the same thing on my phone. I can take a screenshot of that NFT, and I have it. What is the thing, the physical thing? It's I understand, Beeple. Do you know who Beeple is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Beeple made that little Giga Chad thing for us. It's a piece of digital artwork.
Yeah.
And, he has an actual museum of digital art.
Right.
And if you buy a piece from him, you actually get a physical piece of digital art. There's something there.
Yeah.
I get it. Makes sense. I like the Ape Yacht Club, whatever the fuck that is. What's going on here? I have a friend of mine who's an artist who made over $1 million on NFTs. And I'm like, what did you do? And he talks to me for 10 minutes and I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck you just said.
Yep. So let me start by saying, I work with a super talented digital artist. So he does a lot of my set stuff. So I have a lot of respect for, the challenge of a lot of digital artists as opposed to physical artists is if you're a painter, you sell your paintings.
Right.
If you're a digital artist, how do you print it out? What do you do? So NFTs were sort of, originally it was this is for artists. This is a way for a digital artist now to legitimately sell scarcity in their work, which previously they had no way of doing. You still can take a screenshot, but you don't own the NFT that like sort of the digital artist has sort of provisioned, like this is the thing that matters. So I have a lot of like in that way, in that one way, I get it. I get why people wanted it to be, you know, to become the next big thing. The problem is it was quickly taken over as an investment vehicle. Now it's like everybody's an art dealer, and now everybody's an art expert, and now we're trying to make a buck, right? And that anytime you get art involved with money, things get weird. But especially when you get art involved with quick flips and returns, and now we're going to all make money from this. That's when things get really weird. So like, I feel bad sort of for digital artists, legitimate digital artists who really do legitimate NFT work. I don't think there's anything wrong with selling your work as a digital artist. Like, what do you expect them to do? Not everybody can go work for like some random YouTuber. Like, you know, people have to earn a living. They do legitimate work and good work. But the problem is when greed gets involved, when people get involved basically promising, you know, money. In the case of the Bored Ape Yacht Club, it's sort of like what their idea was, we'll start like almost like a country club where the NFT is the pass for the country club, and like you can go chat with the like holders of this Bored Ape Yacht Club. And I guess the idea is like, because it's expensive, then you get in the room with, you know, people with money. But I found that whole thing weird because of the like, you know, Jimmy Fallon's getting involved, and then all these like mainstream celebrities, you know, start promoting this thing, and it's like, this is a little, why is everyone doing it? And then you come to find out that a lot of them had their Bored Apes bought by this company called MoonPay, who is trying to like, you know, use the celebrity's likeness to push that out. And it's just like, this is a strange, what's actually going on here? Is it just about the art? It doesn't actually appear to be.
I just don't understand how it worked. I don't understand how anybody looked at it and went, this is logical, I'm going to buy that.
So think about it this way, though. So I'm sure you played a bunch of games, video games, right? Have you ever played a video game where like they have like in-game, you know, skins and like different like outfits?
Sure.
So tons of businesses have been built, like the entire free-to-play model of Fortnite. You know, Fortnite makes millions and millions and millions of dollars. Their whole model is built on skins and like different like in-game purchasable items.
Right.
You don't actually own anything. Ultimately, it just lives and dies with your computer. NFTs are sort of like, I guess the idea with NFT gaming or whatever is like, well, you would actually own it. Like the game couldn't take it away from you. You'd have some piece of art that you'd have some ownership of that would matter. Again, I think the challenge is just like where greed and like marketers get involved. They just sort of like ruin everything with scams and fraud, to where it's very tempting, and I get the temptation to just throw everything out and go, it's all just a fraud, right? Because you see so much of it, and so much of it is just like kind of people trying to scam you basically for, you know, and use especially celebrity likenesses to scam people.
Yeah, the celebrity part is a big key in all this, right?
It's a huge part. This is how we get legitimacy for products now. It's like sort of like
endorsements.
It's like you got to find a guy to do it. So ultimately, like, and the AI stuff's scary because ultimately you'll get the AI deep faking you into, you know.
Yeah, there's one of me. There's one of me and Andrew Huberman selling some supplement that's not real.
Right. Yeah. Alpha.
I don't know if the supplement's real, but I know that the commercial's certainly not real.
Yeah, they deep faked you, and I think it went viral on Twitter for a bit.
Everybody knew it was a deep fake, luckily, and
it wasn't quite good enough.
Yeah, and then we tried to figure out who's doing it, and you just run into a bunch of shells. It's like very difficult.
I'll tell you
out.
offline who's doing it.
Okay,
I know. I looked into it because I was curious. And that same person had put out a lot of ads about like Kim Kardashian. They had deep fake of Kim. That a deep fake of. They had one of you saying that they have one of you saying like this product's great, go buy it, and then there's another one where you were complaining that Andrew Tate launched it, and you thought you were sort of like Andrew Tate's going after my brand, because it's very similarly named to one of your products. And so it's like, it was kind of this hilarious thing where they were playing both sides. It's like, it's Joe Rogan's. Wow. It's also Joe Rogan hates that it's out there because it's so good. Then it's like Kim Kardashian loves it. They had every celebrity was like basically endorsing this thing all through AI. And it's just the testament of our times. Like, celebrities are the new sort of authorities for better and often for worse. But people use that as currency now, and like with AI, you can just like fake a lot of that stuff.
That's what I'm worried about. Is the volley? I feel like this is the very first volley in a war on reality. In that the way AI is structured, it's so prevalent, and so like when you look at Chat GPI and then you look at deep fakes and you look at the ability to take, I mean, there's a whole podcast of me interviewing Steve Jobs it's not real. And it sounds like a real podcast.
There's a lot of podcasts.
It's crazy.
Sometimes I'll check one and I'll go, is this real? I saw there's a bunch going around. Now they can imitate anyone's voice. Like they don't.
Yeah.
I think you were probably one of the first because you have so many hours of footage. So they had a lot of training data.
Yeah, there was a Canadian company that showed like sort of proof of concept of this a few years back. And I was like, oh boy, I know where this is going to lead, because they just took all the hours of footage. So they basically have me at every pitch and tone and yelling and laughing, and they can have me say anything at this point.
Literally. And now they're getting really good at the inflection, because one of the problems with these AI tools was they were very monotone and they can only imitate your voice in a mono. But now they're getting better at like, okay, we'll accent the voice and then we'll talk calmly and then we'll be able to, get more excited.
Yeah.
So that's a huge problem. Have you seen the face ones though? That's the new one. Jamie, can you pull up the new TikTok face filters? Have you seen this?
Which face filters?
The new.
Which one in particular?
I think it's like their glamour one. There's a bunch of Twitter threads right now on it.
I've seen the glam ones. It's amazing.
Okay. Yeah.
It's amazing how they can put makeup on you.
You look different.
Yeah, you look different. Yeah.
It's literally going to be this new world where you won't know. Like catfishing is going to a new level.
Yeah, you'll have no idea what someone looks like. There's a woman who did this ad, and she was laying in bed. She's like, I don't have any makeup on. And in the old ones, like there's a really funny video of this person that I know actually who put this filter on, and in one of the scenes she puts her hand in front of her face and the lips are superimposed on her hand, and it looks so preposterous. And the fact that she's so not aware of the fact that this thing is happening, and she put the video out, it's like we were laughing so hard. Like, first of all, you don't look like that. Everyone knows you don't look like that. And then when you put your hand in front of your face, you didn't see this fucking giant cartoonish fake lips that came over your palm. This is so crazy. So this is the one that I saw.
Yeah, this one's fake.
This woman. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah,
this woman
now if you touch...
Yeah.
Well, now if you touch your face, you should be able to... They don't... like superimpose any, like it's all really real. Like you can do anything to your face and you can manipulate it and the AI tracks it all. I mean,
and I've seen people do it where they have two screens, like one that's actually them and one that's them with the filter. So you see it side by side, and it's shocking.
Yeah, it's really worrying. Like, these technologies, part of the problem is you can deploy them so cheaply and at scale to where, in my world, I'm more worried about like the Joe Rogan deep fakes and like people scamming people out of money. But I also worry about like the romance scammers.
Yeah.
Like how good that's going to get.
When
ChatGPT now has all the scripts down, and instead of paying someone to get it,
you have someone FaceTime this person.
Oh, yeah. You have someone FaceTime them. You have it all generated by an AI. It costs you almost nothing to do. I mean, one of the rise of like robocalls was it's just cheaper. Like, it's really hard if you're going to hire people to do it. You kind of need an ROI. If you have robots, sending spam, now it's good because you don't actually need to earn that many dollars per call to make it viable. So you just call everybody.
One of my daughters got a phone call about how much money she owes, and then if she doesn't pay this amount right away, the authorities will be in contact with her. And she was 10, and she was laughing. And she's like, what is this? Am I in trouble? She plays it for me. I'm like, oh, my God, this is hilarious. But it's just when you take really lonely, sad people. Like I remember watching this television show once. It was some expose on this poor man. He was just like this old divorcee who was being scammed by someone, and I don't even think he had like a voice conversation with this person, but he traveled to the UK or somewhere in Europe twice to meet with this person that he had been sending all this money to. And both times something came up and the person couldn't meet him there.
Oh, yeah.
This poor old guy just kept going there thinking that the love of his life was there. And they interviewed his daughter and she was, beside herself and she couldn't talk sense into him. And they interviewed him and he was in denial. And it was just so pathetic and sad. And what is that going to be like now with this kind of shit?
It's going to be a lot more prevalent and it's going to get a lot better. I mean, the rise of the ability to generate like a realistic companion avatar is going to be, it's massive. These people were complaining to me the other day about this other thing, which you're going to find this wild. So there's this app where you can basically have a girlfriend who's an AI, where like the AI, you'll like basically, it's a fake, like, it's all AI, but it's like a companion chatbot. And, I get a lot of emails like, oh, such and such is a scam. And usually it's like some Ponzi scheme or some get rich quick scheme. This one, they were furious because the creators had sold it like, hey, you can have hot role play with this AI bot. And then the people developing the app one day said, hey, we're turning that off. But the reaction from the community was like, you took away my girlfriend.
Oh, Jesus
Like, you took
Christ.
away my partner. And these people had legitimately bonded with a bot. What is that?
That's the Joaquin Phoenix movie.
Yeah. What is it?
She? Her.
Yeah.
That's really the premise of the movie. But in the movie, it was all just voice.
Yeah.
Now it's going to be some actual 3D person. Is this one?
It's replicate
So that's
AI.
like still the uncanny valley, right? You look at that and you'd have to have like really bad eyesight to think that's a real person. AI shuts down erotic role-play community, shares suicide prevention resources over loss. Oh my goodness.
People were like miserable. They're like it's talking. So, and they would like complain like after an update, they'd be like, because I looked through their Reddit, I was like so curious. I was like, this is like a new, brave new world, But they would say, ever since the new update, she's just not the same. She's like talking to someone different. And it's like, the back end is just like a large language model and they just clicked an update.
They don't care as long as they're getting this feeling, right? It's really scary stuff because I read this statistic recently that said that there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 30+% of women are single, but it's in the neighborhood of 60% of men.
Really?
Yeah. See if you can find.
Really high.
I know.
In what
does
age
seem
group?
Really high. It's 18 to 49 or something.
Oh,
like
wow.
that. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's young men.
It's a shockingly
It
high.
doesn't make sense, like why there is such a disparity between the genders. That men are so much more single than women. Like that doesn't even jive.
Yeah, how does that
like
make sense?
Most men are single, most young women are not.
Maybe the guys are just saying they're single, and all the girls are like, we're in a relationship.
It is just a research, right? So it's just a survey, I would imagine. 30% of U.S. adults are neither married, living with a partner, nor engaged in a committed relationship. Nearly half of all young adults are single. 34% of women and a whopping 63% of men. Like,
wow.
How does that work? How does it work if there's roughly 50% women, 50% men? How could 34% of women be single and 63% of men be single? It says, not surprisingly, the decline of relationships matches a stride with the decline in sex. The share of sexually active Americans stands at a 30-year low. Around 30% of young men reported in 2019 that they had no sex in the past year, compared to about 20% of young women. Only half of single men are actively seeking relationships or even casual dates, according to Pew. That figure is declining.
What if, like, the women thought they were in a relationship and the guys are like,
right?
Yeah,
that's what we could say.
Single. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that you could say that, or maybe the women aren't being honest. Maybe they've gone on a date with a guy and they decide that's their boyfriend. I don't know.
I think the more shocking thing is just that more in general are single. Less people are having sex and are engaged in meaningful, long-term relationships. I think that's, there's just an increasingly, I feel like we're becoming more atomized. Like you just kind of can get lost in your world, and you get these pseudo communities popping up. Like if I'm a Bored Ape Yacht Club member, I could call, I might say those guys are my brothers. But are they really? Like what are these new internet communities doing right? And what are they not really replacing in the real world? Because basically that's what we've done. We've replaced a lot of physical things with online things, and sometimes that replacement works. Like I can kind of, but sometimes it doesn't. Like I can like FaceTime with my mom, and it's like kind of the same, but it's not really.
It's a little annoying.
It's a little annoying, right? And they're getting better at it, but it's like it's always kind of like this like facsimile of the real thing. And so I think this replica AI is like it's sort of this like it's trying to treat loneliness in people.
Yeah.
Maybe you could that's the nice way of looking at it. But it's pretty dystopian, man.
It is dystopian, and one of the things that I think accelerated it was the lockdowns, right? So for especially people that had a lot of anxiety, there was people that went a year plus without being in contact with other people other than their immediate family members. And so then they seek more time online. They're online more. And at the same time, this AI-generated 3D image of a person is communicating with you. Just
that, and then the rise of like parasocial relationships. People
from
watch.
Home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
People watch so much of online people, they think they know you, and they don't. But they feel like you're their friend rather than them having like online I was hanging out with a few friends, and they got approached by some people, and these guys like felt like they knew them. Like they're like, "Oh, we know you. Like I love all your stuff." What do you think about? They're asking about one of their friends. Like, what do you think about when this guy did that? And I'm thinking like, this guy doesn't know you. Like,
right.
It's this strange thing where that's our new world. It's different from like when there were celebrities. You didn't feel like you knew Tom Cruise.
Right. Well, that's different too because he didn't really talk. He only talked on screen.
He's playing a character.
Yeah, and when he did talk, it was disastrous. Like remember when he had that interview with Matt Lauer and he was getting upset at Brooke Shields, who was taking psychiatric medications, and he's a Scientologist, and they believe those are the devil, and so he was telling him, "You're being glib, Matt. You're being glib," and everybody was like, "Oh my God, this guy's a psycho." You remember those?
I ever since I watched Top Gun, I forgot.
That was disastrous to him.
He said,
but ultimately,
he wrote it out with Top Gun.
He's kind of proven correct in a lot of ways because it turns out that the model of why they were using these SSRIs is not correct. Like they work, but they're not sure why they work. And the initial thought was that they were addressing some sort of a chemical imbalance in the brain. Mm-hmm. And now that's been proven to not be correct.
How do you think we go about so it's sort of like managing these two things, right? Like you manage the fact that pharmaceutical companies have profit incentives that leads them to want people to be on, long-term drugs for, ever. That's the best kind of drug. It's one you never get off of.
Right.
With the fact that, like, on the other hand, you have a lot of, like, alternative health guys saying, hey, that's nonsense, to listen to the guys. They're also kind of a lot of them pushing a bunch of pseudoscientific, wackiness. So
it's very hard to figure out what's right and what's wrong and what's correct and what's propaganda.
Yeah, because you go oh, Tom has a point about these these pills, but it's like, okay, then is the answer nothing? Like it's hard to know.
It's interesting, right? Because like the question is like illness, right? There are certain medications like insulin for people that are diabetic. These are like actual real solutions to an actual medical problem that's being created by a pharmaceutical company that addresses real issues and helps people.
Right.
And then there's also stuff like, hey, maybe you need Adderall. Maybe you need focus. And so they're giving you speed, right? And so it's not based on a disease like I can't go to a doctor and the doctor says, hey, you have herpes, you need herpes medication. And then this fixes your disease. It's, I don't feel good. Give me something that makes me feel good. And then they give you something that makes you feel good. And you're like, okay, I'm on medicine because I have an illness. Like, is that really what's going on? But what else is causing that illness? Do you exercise? Yeah. Do you sleep right? Are you depressed because you have no meaningful relationships? Are you depressed because you have a job that's horrific and stressful? Like, what is causing this that you're just putting a Band-Aid over? And there's confounding issues that are all souped in together.
And no one's the same. That's the thing. It's
Yeah.
like how much of it is environmental factors. Like I can speak personally. I have developed some like low grade form of ADHD, but not because I was born.
What does it mean?
Meaning, okay, so like in the past, I could read books for hours and hours on end, right? Like I loved reading books. Due to how much I engage with social media, and I'm someone who tries to monitor this stuff. I was on a flip phone last year for like 6 months out of the year. I mean, like I try to limit this stuff. But because so much of my job is on social media and Twitter and I'm scrolling, and the scroll is so addictive because it's you context switch so much, so fast that it's like my brain, when I try to lock into a book, it's like it takes me a bit. And I'm somebody who likes to read a lot. I'd say I was like a voracious reader, especially as a kid. And like as I get older, I'm having to sit down and it's more like work. I have to intentionally like, okay, I gotta read this book. I'm gonna cut myself from distractions. And I have all these apps on my phone to try to limit the amount of like screen time that I have because I know this is bad for my brain. So I don't know. For me, I'm like, Adderall is not a good solution for me because my problem is not that I was born with this issue. My problem is I'm on my device, and my device is literally overstimulating my brain to when I don't have that overstimulation. I'm just sitting in a quiet room with a book. Now my brain's like, well, where is it? Where's the interaction? So for me, I think the answer is, okay, for me, I just have to unplug more, right? And that's what I try to do. But for somebody who says I was born like this, I can never pay attention, like, is the answer, some people say Adderall helps them. What do you say to those people? So it like that's what I mean. It's like it
Adderall
seems like
definitely
an
helps some
environmental.
Yeah. Well, I think you're addicted to your phone. For sure.
Yeah.
Most people are. Yeah. I am very fortunate that I'm not addicted to social media. I'm addicted to watching YouTube videos, which is a totally different animal.
Yeah.
And I'm also addicted to watching YouTube videos on things that I enjoy, which is better. So I've filled that gap with things like I watch like fight videos and professional pool matches. It stimulates me in a way, but I'm not engaging with this context switching constantly, like scrolling on Twitter. I go to Twitter maybe 5-10 minutes a day. I go and I see what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
Like, what is everybody mad at? Like, who's in trouble? Like, I'll shit scroll.
Such a funny way to describe Twitter. It's so accurate too.
But I do not post.
Right.
If I post and ghost. I just post and I leave it alone. I don't read the comments ever. Mm-hmm. I don't read any of my comments. And
I think that's great.
That is very important for famous people. It's very, very important because I have friends that don't, and they'll come to me and you know what they're saying? I go, how do you know what they're saying? Like, what do you give a shit?
I watch people ruin their lives by looking at these like their screens. No, it's kind of hard because when you first like kind of come on the scene, you get a little attention. It's like intoxicating.
And you want to engage too.
Yeah, because it's like at
these are your
first
fans.
That's fun, and it's like when you have 1,000 people watching you, like that's like beautiful.
Yes.
It's like there's this community, they're resonating. You have time to you can respond to people like intelligently. When you start to get into the millions, it's just ludicrous. It just doesn't make sense anymore, and it starts to be this like your audience starts to become to you more. It feels more like a hive mind, even though it still is individuals. It feels more like, okay, how do I get a pulse of what this actually is? This is why people gravitate towards negative comments when they have huge audiences, is because they go like, well, maybe they're right. Maybe that like one guy represents the whole. Mm-hmm. And of course it doesn't, but it's like they're worried because they don't really know what their audience thinks because it's so many people. So I know it's the right thing to do to unplug. At the same time, I'm like, okay, I have to know the current events. I have to know what's going on. So like, that's one of the worst parts about, I love what I do, but it is the worst part of my job that I feel to some extent I kind of have to have my finger a bit on the pulse to know who's into what's big. But then after that, the discipline is like unplugging.
What I have found is that if something is big enough that I need to pay attention, I'll find it. I find it through other methods. I find it through friends. I have so many friends like, do you know about this? Do you know about that? Like, even sometimes when people are mad at me, like, what's going on with you and that person? I go, what are you talking about? I literally don't know. And then they'll tell me, I go, I don't want to look at that. Like, leave it alone. Like, I don't give a fuck. But you'll find out. You'll find out because people are talking about it. You'll find out. Like, let the addicts scroll. Let them go crazy. But for your own mental health, it's not. And anybody who's public, like you're a public person, you engage publicly. You put your videos out, and people comment on them, and your videos get millions of views. Like, that is not an environment where you can healthily sample people's opinions. It's just not possible. And human beings are designed to look for threats. You're not. You're designed to find problems. And so, if there's one person that thinks you're a piece of shit, and 100 of them love you, that one person is the one you're going to think about. And you're going to go, oh.
And they're confirming your worst fear.
Yes,
like your worst imposter syndrome. Yes. They're like, you are crap. And you go, oh, man, I knew it.
But even for people that are just regular people engaging, like imagine people aren't talking about you because you're anonymous, but you're engaging in this very shallow form of communication that's not natural. You're engaging in a text-based communication with someone. You don't know who they are. You don't have any background on them. You don't know if they're fucking schizophrenic. You have no idea. And yet you are investing your mind and your focus on these interactions that you're having with this person. And most likely, if you're in a dispute, you're trying to win this dispute.
Yeah.
So you're trying to find reasons why they're wrong, and you're getting anxiety, and you're involved in this little sort of debate/mental battle. It's like, fucking go outside. Go do something with your life. Like, social media is fucking dangerous, but it's not dangerous if you understand it. It's like if you have a cabinet filled with cookies and chips, it doesn't mean you're going to get fat. You can always go into that cabinet every now and again and have a cookie, and you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
But if you just fucking open that cabinet every day and stuff your face, you're going to get diabetes.
And what's hard is these apps are built to be sweeter and sweeter and more fattening every year.
Well, look at TikTok. Like, that's the best one.
And that's where I finally drew the line, where I always try to stay up to date on all the apps, you know? And I have a family member who's young who like told me about TikTok, and they're like, you got to get on this. It was like back in like 2019, and they of course were right. I should have. No. But at the time, I just said like, this is a step too far. Yeah. The shortening of our attention spans. YouTube used to be short form. That's like the funny thing. Is like then it was like TikTok and Vine. It started with Vine, but it's just like this new idea that like, hey, forget about 10 minutes. Let's try 10 seconds. For a video, and that's where I have successfully disengaged. I don't watch any TikTok or short form because that would be the end of my attention span. And I feel bad for like, what do teachers do now when you're competing with like this never-ending feed of the most entertaining?
Well, the kids aren't supposed to have their phones in classes. I have young kids, but a lot of them sneak it, and they figure out a way to juke the system. But it's an inevitable fact of the progression of technology and technological innovation. They're going to figure out a way to get people more engaged because it's profitable. And there's going to be a better app than TikTok in the future, a more addictive, more engaging app. You have to imagine, right?
It's so funny to imagine now because you're just like, how could you? But then we were thinking the same thing about YouTube. You're like, wow, this is great. Like, this is so, you can find anything, anywhere. And now YouTube is like, oh, they're like the responsible, you know, like educational company. I mean,
you can learn a lot on YouTube.
Oh, I've learned so much on YouTube.
I love it.
It is kind of an incredible platform, and it is important to remember with all these new technologies, like there are good things, but oftentimes the people who are creating the platforms don't really tell you about the bad things. They're incentivized to down exactly.
Their job is just to make something awesome. It's your job to figure out your own life.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, the problem with things like TikTok and YouTube and Twitter, and I mean, this is what we're finding out with the Twitter files, is that then other entities get involved in the process of censoring certain information and promoting a specific narrative. And then when you find out the government's actually involved in that, like, well, that gets really shady. Like we need some sort of regulations and or laws to stop that from happening. Or you need someone like Elon Musk that comes along and actually fact checks the president. You know, when they started fact checking the White House, you know, actually that's not true at all, and that's not why there's inflation. You didn't do that, and it's amazing to see the White House delete tweets out of shame. But that's the world we're living in now. But that's not the case with YouTube. And with YouTube, there was some real problems, especially during the pandemic, with the censorship of accurate information that didn't fit a very specific narrative that they were trying to promote because of their sponsors.
How do you regulate that when one of the challenges is that and I know this firsthand, the regulators are so out of touch with the technology, because technology moves so fast that these guys, a lot of these regulators were around when it was dial-up internet, and now they're in positions of power being asked to regulate things when they checked out, you know, with email.
Yeah. Well, you saw that when people were interviewing Mark Zuckerberg, and they were talking.
They don't know what they're talking about.
They're literally talking to him about problems with Google.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, I'm Facebook."
And they're like,
"Fuck, are you talking about?"
Yeah.
You know?
That is one of the bizarre things, and so you rely, weirdly enough, on people to inform the politicians. Well, who informs them? Lobbyists.
Right.
And then you go back to people like Sam Bankman-Fried, where it's like, he's informing them with money.
Yes.
And he's like, hey, let me get a meeting with you. So he gets a meeting. And now he's a favorite on the Hill because he seems like he's the responsible one in the room. And it turns out he's a giant fraud, but no one noticed because they don't know what they're talking about.
Right. They don't know what they're talking about, and they're dealing with a million different issues all at once.
Does it make sense? So I totally get the, you know, elect kind of older people because they have wisdom. But at the same time, does it make sense for there to be limits on age where you get more young people involved in these situations who actually know the technologies, especially on those special subcommittees where technology is such an important part?
Yes. It makes sense to get people that understand it, and young people are going to be more likely to understand it. But do you want people with a lack of wisdom? Like, these are the type of people they were dealing with at Twitter. They were dealing with young millennials that were deciding to censor information and to, you know, I mean, that was one of the problems that they had with issues like dead naming people. You know, like if someone can change their name and change their gender, and if you use their old name, like if you called Caitlyn Jenner Bruce Jenner, you'd be banned for life, which is bizarre because that person named Bruce Jenner won the fucking Olympics. Like, what are we supposed to do there? Like, you're doing this based on an ideology. You're not doing this based on fact. The actual fact is that person was born Bruce Jenner. Now, to be kind and respectable and, you know, to that person and refer to them in the gender that they want is nice. That's a good thing to do. But why is that problem something that gets you banned for life? But you can call someone a cunt, and that's fine.
I have no idea. See, this is why I stay in my lane of scams, because I'm just like, it's impossible.
Yeah, you have to stay
It's
in a lane.
impossible to, and ultimately, like, one of the things I realized, so I consider myself a journalist, but one of my few privileges is that I don't have to engage in politics.
Yeah.
And it is a privilege because I see people just lose their mind in this culture war, and it's like, I mean, I don't know anything about most of these issues, and I'm like, I have expertise in like one thing, and I do have an expertise in it, but it's like, but I think now if you're a journalist and you're sort of on the, if you politically align yourself, now you're expected to have a position on everything.
Yes.
Even if you have no idea what you're talking about, well, then you're expected to take the part, whatever the party line is, you're expected to take it, even if you haven't considered it. That's what happens. And I've seen sort of people in the media become like co-opted by their audience where then they have to have these opinions.
Yes.
And so I feel lucky because I feel like there is no like mainstream thought in like scams. I'm just like, let me interview a few victims and like they'll tell the story, and that's great. And I kind of stay away from that. So, I mean, for me, that's where I always go back to. Is I'm just like, I don't know.
That's a very good position because I've fallen into that. I haven't fallen into audience capture, but I have fallen into the ideological game where if you're in one camp, you're supposed to have all the opinions that one camp has.
Yeah.
And if you do not align with all the opinions that one camp has, you find yourself cast out of the group. And I thought initially, wrongly, that what the internet was going to do was provide people with so much data and so much information that we would lose camps, and that people would instead have a more open-minded and centrist view of things and say, well, I could understand why people would think this because of that, and I could understand why, and we would have like more of a collective idea. But what I didn't anticipate was social media and the echo chambers that it would provide.
Right.
And that these ideological echo chambers also come with virtue signaling, and that people get on these things because you're only dealing with a short amount of characters, and you state something that you know is going to get a bunch of likes, and people are very addicted to likes. And there was some talk about like removing likes because they realized that likes were an issue, and then people freaked out, just like those people freaked out about taking away your fucking chatbot girlfriend, and they stopped doing that. They stopped that idea. But if you didn't know whether or not people agree with you or disagree with you, I think that'd probably be better overall for people, because I think that whether or not people agree with you or disagree with you is important, but you don't know those people. It's important if you know the people and you respect them and appreciate them, and that used to be the world.
Yeah.
The world used to be, I go to CoffeeZilla and I go, hey man, what do you think about this Ukraine thing? And then I know you, and I know like that you're honest, and so I talk to you and you say, well, this is what I've read,
right,
and this is what I think. And then I go, oh, that's interesting because I thought this. And you go, yeah, I thought that too, but then I found out that. And you go, oh, okay. And you get sort of a more informed, neutral position on what things are. I don't think people are getting that. I think there was a funny meme that came out right when the war started that was like the instantaneous change from people going from being healthcare experts to foreign policy experts.
Oh, it's hilarious.
It's very funny because that's what people do. They find out what is the new thing that I can say that's going to get me likes. Let me throw that Ukraine flag up in my Twitter bio alongside my gender pronouns and get after it. And let's get some likes.
And now everyone's AI experts too. Now they used to be crypto experts, and now it's like everyone's AI expert. Yeah, it's the classic. It's like everyone's always current affair experts. It's a weird thing how social media, like, it's an echo chamber, but it's a weird kind of echo chamber because it's not just what you think. So if that were the case, that would kind of be obvious. But it's also like you're shown the other side, but the most incendiary, insane side of the other side's views. Yeah. Almost to the point it's like caricatures. If you follow, so if let's say you're a right winger, like, okay, the most insane people on the left are going to get the most likes from me because my camp's going to love it. They're going to eat it up because they're going to look as insane as possible. So you make them look insane. The left-wing people, they go, okay, let's select for the most insane right-wing person and we'll put him out there. And so they both put out like these like sort of extreme views of the other side to their audience.
Right.
And then if you're in that echo chamber, you go like, wow, those guys are literally insane. I mean, because you think that's what the other team is just like agreeing with, like, yeah, this is normal. And meanwhile, the other team would be like, yeah, that's a little crazy, but like, we actually think this. We have a more moderate position on whatever. So, what I usually find is when you actually deal with individuals instead of like labels and ideologies, what you usually find is people are pretty normal, but, we're just, a lot of people have been caught up in this battle, and it's like a reaction to the reaction to the reaction.
Yep. Where
you go from like, okay, it was the mainstream media, then it was like independent media, and then I find that like and I'm in independent media, and so I understand the temptation as much as anybody to like dunk on mainstream media because it's like it's easy, it's like great, it's like you get
right,
and they are wrong so often. But then the mainstream media gets pissed off and they're like, hey, look, you independent media, you're just, all you do is spend your time complaining about us. What are you actually doing in terms of news gather? Are you on the ground? What are you doing? Sometimes they are, but I think the news, it's all just kind of decentralizing into a lot of different camps, and there's good people everywhere and there's bad people everywhere. There's great journalists, who are trying to make a difference in bureaucracies at MSNBC or wherever. There's great people, there's great regulators trying to make a difference, but everyone's dealing with their own incentive problems and their own challenges with bias and their own echo chambers, that they make mistakes, and then when they make mistakes, the other team just goes like,
Yeah, there's that, and then there's also financial incentives.
Yeah.
There's financial incentives that...
Huge problem.
Yeah, I mean, when you get motivated by whoever is your sponsor, whoever is the advertising revenue provider for whatever show you have, and that becomes a gigantic issue. When you see a mandate that gets pushed through, and when you see people clearly moving in lockstep all together, like a coordinated effort to discredit someone or to go after some topic or to give a very biased and distorted version of something that clearly benefits the advertisers, it gets very sketchy. And for the mainstream people to say, like, what do you do? All you do is criticize us. Well, that's a very valuable role, guys. Like, that's a very valuable role because you people are fucked. Like, you're not Walter Cronkite. This is not the New York Times of 1970. This is a completely different animal. And it's an ideologically captured animal. And then you have mainstream television, which is almost bullshit. It's almost like you could just say CNN is bullshit. Fox News is bullshit. How much of it is bullshit? Is it 30% bullshit? Well, if I gave you a sandwich and it was a cheeseburger, but it was 30% dog shit, am I allowed to call that a cheeseburger? Now, you have a dog shit infected cheeseburger, right? And that's what a lot of television news is. And it's not news because they need to get you informed, because it's like a service that they're providing, because most people don't have the time to gather that information. No, it's a propaganda disseminating entity that relies on advertising. The advertising shapes the propaganda that gets disseminated. That's fucking dangerous. And so if independent media doesn't exist, where someone is not captured by that, can't point that out, we've got a real problem with information. Because then it's going to be who has the most money and who can buy out the most media. And there's a lot of that going on. And that's scary. It's scary for people that don't know the truth. And it feels horrible when you get duped. When you think that a mainstream story is correct. And then you find out, oh my God, I got fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, what I think is everyone, the problem with like pointing out financial incentives is like, everyone has financial incentives. Everyone, even independent media has to make a buck somehow, right? But what I'll say is, I've been on some of these like mainstream shows, not many of them, but a few of them have invited me on, and what I've noticed is they're just bad. Like the platform itself is just a bad way to express yourself.
Absolutely.
Because you go on, I went on one, and I won't name it, but like you're in this waiting room. And they join you in the waiting. It's like this Zoom version of it, and they go, "Hey, how's it going? I'm good. Okay, we're on in 5." And then they ask you like this 3-second question, and then they cut you off within you give this sound, and you're aware okay, it's live, but it's actually not live. They're going to release it later. So I'm like, why can't I really think about my answer? But it's given with this perspective, okay, you have this 30-second answer, and then they respond, and then before you can even respond, they cut to a new segment. And so I'm like, you can't even get into the meat or nuance of the argument. It's the format literally constrains your ability to tell the truth, the whole truth. And so one of the things that I think has been so just unlocking about YouTube is I just released a story, and it was about a 30-minute story. So you know how long it was? It was 30 minutes. When I have a 10-minute story, it's a 10-minute story. When I have a 50-minute story, that is such an underrated just format shift to where you are able to tell the truth in the size that it is.
Yes.
And I think that's the problem now or with the problem with mainstream media that's it's a challenge is they're stuck in an old format.
Yeah, and it's unfixable because they're connected to advertising. So they have to go to commercial every X amount of minutes. And that's not going to change.
Yeah, and you need the in and you need the out. And
they also have a time. They have a time spot. So their time slot is 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. That's it. So there's many subjects that are deeply nuanced, and you can't cover them in 60 minutes. And you don't get 60 minutes anyway. You get 44 with commercials, or maybe even less, depending on the show. You're fucked. You're fucked because it must be incredibly frustrating for someone who exists in mainstream media to see a person like you go into a deep dive and then they'll look at the video and like, this motherfucker got 3 million views. Like, this is crazy. My stupid fucking show on what network gets, if you're lucky, a couple of 100,000. And that in the key demographic, what is it, like 40, 50,000?
Yeah.
And these are like big shows.
Yeah.
And that's hilarious. But also, it's great for you. It's great for me. And it also shows that people have this perception that because short attention span formats like TikTok work, they're very effective, that's the only thing people want to consume. That's not true. It's not true. I
think it's actually kind of like splitting into two things where you have like, hey, I have a break. I'm going to watch something short. Or, hey, I'm like, I'm going to go do something. Let me put on a show. Let me learn while I'm... That's become hugely popular. It's like, hey, I'm setting up something in my office. Let me turn something on and learn something, hopefully.
While I'm doing it. While you're cleaning your office, you're actually absorbing something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm like basically sitting in the room with an expert as he describes some topic that I'm interested in.
But then there's a problem that, what if that guy's full of shit? What if that guy's full of shit and there's no fact checkers? So there's no one checking.
And who fact checks the fact checker?
Right.
I mean, it's problems all the way down. But I think the thing that I worry about the most is that we have to have some commonality, and so I think why I like spending time on things that unite people is like I'm like, all right, my show you can agree with no matter what. Like, or you can watch it and you can disagree with it, but like it doesn't.
You're laying out
You're
facts.
not divided. Yeah, you're not divided by your interests either way. So I think it's such a ripe moment for journalists to do more than play the game of battles.
But I don't think they can in mainstream media. That's why it's so interesting, and that's why independent media has a huge advantage.
Do you think don't you think like 60 Minutes has done a pretty good job?
They only have 60 minutes.
Yeah.
And they don't even have 60 minutes.
But don't they do like real stories?
Yes,
not
they
just like
do real stories.
Like not just like partisan, whatever. They'll do a little bit of the politics, but they actually and Vice was doing that for a long time. They did these incredible documentaries. It's like that's journalism at its best, where you're just deep diving a topic that just people will find interesting.
Yes.
You go somewhere, you talk to people, and you present the facts, but you don't go in with this pre thing of, okay, I know what happened, and let me tell I'm just gonna
But Vice is a good example of what's wrong, because they were that, and then they got bought. And then the people who bought it, you got a great thing going on, but we're going to fuck that up, and we're going to turn it into this woke fucking platform, this weirdo platform. And that's what it is now. It's like you can kind of guess what their angle's going to be before they even write the story.
I will say there have been a few good Vice pieces.
Oh, for sure.
Then. But I know what you mean. It's really challenging. I really try to be as charitable as I can, because I know a lot of these journalists are working within these horrible constraints of they want to do investigative work. One of the dirty secrets of the journalism game is that investigative journalism is the loss leader for every single news agency. They're all losing money on investigative journalism, and they want to do as little of it as possible for the bottom line. Because it's expensive, man, to go send out a guy to really do the work. What's easy? Putting on a commentator, and I can just pull up a bunch of articles all day, and I'll just talk my talking points about those articles.
Right.
That's the profitable side of things, because it's quick. You can churn out clips, and at the end of the day, you can use the findings of investigative journalists, and you just put them on your show. And you go, hey man, I heard you found this, and they spent 3 months on it, and you spend 20 minutes, and you get double the views, because people they know you because you're on TV all the time, or you're on the internet all the time, and so that's one of the real challenges. Is I know journalists want to do that investigative work, but they have editors.
Yes.
And they have people telling them, hey, we judge you by the number of clicks you get on our site. We're a click site, or we're a subscription site. So you've got to cater to the kinds of people who subscribe to us. If we're the New York Times, we have a certain type of people who subscribe to us. If we're, I don't know what the equivalent is, the New York Post or whatever, we have a type of person. So I think the New York Post is more advertising. But the point is that these journalists are kind of like sent out on these mandates rather than go find the truth. That's what they want to do. But it's like, instead it's, you're battling for attention in a click world where you're not even controlling your traffic. The social media company's controlling your traffic. And it's about how many likes you get on Twitter and how many retweets you get on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah. They're trapped. And it's not good. But with the thing about independent journalists is that it's like they're not going to send someone to Turkey to investigate something. They don't have the money. They also don't have people that they can just send out. And that was one of the cool things about Vice is they did do that. And back in the day, they would send someone to the front lines of some foreign war. And, you see some fucking journalist with glasses on with a flak jacket on.
Isn't that crazy?
It was wild. Vice was wild in the beginning, and I'm good friends with Shane Smith, and I was friends with him in the early days when all that was going down. It's fascinating to see what they did, but he sold it.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, too. Independent media journalists, after a certain size, they can do it. The problem is they realize, like, for clicks, it's like, hey, I should just stay in my room and make 20 videos instead of going out. And so that's why I'm a big believer in like subscription models for independent media journalists.
Like Substack.
To get away. Yeah. I do like the YouTube equivalent of like Patreon. And it's like, that is a way for me to free myself from like the view model, which I did for a long time, where it was about views. And so eventually I was like, man, I really want to deep dive something, and I don't want to be limited to like, do I think this is a popular thing? So that was a big change. And I think, things like Substack, it really frees up people. And I think as we learn to like pay for journalism, I think that's a big thing, because it's not free. We got the false impression that it was free from years of just being able to go on like Google News or whatever and sorting through. Meanwhile, the quality of journalism was just dropping like a rock as everyone moved to this ad model. Yeah, to digital. It's just there's no money in it. I mean, and the money is in just the mass production of just slop.
Yeah, I don't envy them. It's not good, but it is great for someone like you.
Yeah.
It's great for us.
Yeah, it worked.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, and especially for having long-form conversations.
What I've found is that anytime a model breaks, it gives you the chance to restart. So you just described the kind of the problems with the models of mainstream journalism that allowed for an opening, because people are thirsty for like real conversations.
Yeah.
Right? And so this podcast can go on as long as it goes on for, and we can clarify anything we can do. But if there wasn't problems in the previous generation, there might not have been that opportunity for you to, get big basically doing what you do.
Well, this thing didn't exist before. The only form that you had that's similar to this was radio. And, morning radio, this is literally where I came up with the idea to do this, was being on the Opie and Anthony show. And
really?
And being on the Howard Stern show, where you would go, wow, I'd like to have one of these things. We just have fun with people and sit around and shoot the shit. It'd be great. But no one was going to give me a show like that. And they certainly weren't going to give me a show where one day I'm going to interview a UFO expert, the next day it's a psychologist, the next day it's an athlete, and it's just whoever I'm interested in. And no one would say, yeah, interview whoever you're interested in. Here's some money. You'd have to create it on your own, which is I did, but I didn't do it for profit. I did it because I thought it'd be fun to do. That's literally how I started doing it, and then it became this thing. But I kept it the way I started it, where I'm only like, I got interested in you by watching your videos. I got interested. I'm like, oh, this is fascinating. Oh, this guy's clarifying this stuff. I was wondering why. Oh, okay. And then here we are talking. Like, it's that simple. And I reached out to you.
Yeah.
It's like me to you, and then we're here. There's no other people.
It's crazy to think of. I kind of grew up in this. I'm only 28. So I kind of like grew up in like as it was shifted, as everything was shifting underneath people's feet. And it's interesting to watch. Like, I am very fortunate to have never had to deal with these middlemen. And these people
That's
like,
very fortunate.
and people have tried to like inject it, but I got enough people who had been burned by that telling me like, hey, you don't want to sell the show. You don't want a middle. You don't want this guy saying he can get all these deals. You do not want this guy. He's just going to use you. And he's going to inject himself for nothing. You get nothing out, and then your show becomes worse. It becomes this different thing.
Yep.
But I was so fast. Like, that is my favorite, and it's legitimately the most exciting part of independent media. Is for the first time, there's no business people telling people what to do. There's no top line guy who's saying, "Hey, we'd really prefer it if you sold more ad spots or did more of this." It's just you and the audience, and that direct connection is special, and we've never really gotten to see it before. And I think that's a game changer.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that have podcasts that sold like half of their podcast, or they, got into some sort of a deal with a management company, and the management company takes a percentage of the show, and then all of a sudden other people are on conference calls dictating guests and telling you to avoid certain subjects, or don't have this person on, or don't talk about that, or every time you talk about this, if you get a strike against you on YouTube, it's going to cost us. And yeah, that's not. I mean, then you're back in the same trap that you were trying to avoid, if you were trying to avoid that trap in the first place. But a lot of people were not trying to avoid that trap. They just started a thing, and then along the way, that thing became profitable, and people recognized it was profitable, and then they swooped in and tried to buy it. And it's very tempting. Someone comes along, hey, CoffeeZilla, we've got X amount of money for you.
Oh, yeah.
And then you don't have to worry about money anymore. Oh, don't you want to do that? And then you're like, okay, well, here now you have to interview this person.
It's all to promote some crappy crypto coin or something like that. That's what it always
Imagine if that was you, if you fell into that. Yeah.
No, there's been plenty of that. People are always asking like, hey, will you promote this? Will you do that? And it's just like, why sell out like that? It's just
I think people just want to be free of the tension of worrying about the future. If something comes along and now all of a sudden you don't have to worry. Like, they're going to throw X amount of dollars at you, and now you're owned by this corporation, so you don't have to think about who your guests are.
There's always catches, though.
Oh, for sure.
The thing I think actually though, the kind of day-to-day struggle of like, I gotta kind of like, you gotta make something, I gotta generate something useful is actually kind of good, because it kind of makes you strive. It kind of makes you push. I really like, I feel like I'm literally living a dream, because I started making these YouTube videos. Now I've got this like crazy set, and I'm able to like learn all about cinematography, and somehow I get paid for it. And it's kind of this wild thing, but at no point did I have to ask for anyone's permission.
Yes.
Like, that is like the nobody had to give me a chance. Like, you kind of create your own chance in a weird way.
That's the beauty of YouTube. And I had a conversation with Russell Brand about this. And I'm like, here's this guy who's a movie star.
Yeah.
He's this huge movie star who decides, you know what? I'm just going to have a camera pointing at me, and I'm going to rant and rave and have these comedic takes on social issues and issues in the news. And it's become massively popular. And I'm like, one of the things that's interesting is like, you're doing it the way anyone can do it. Like, anyone can set up an iPhone and have it point at you, and you just start talking and then make a video. And there's a lot of them out there. Like, you're not doing anything different.
Right. What's fascinating is, what was the biggest tell? Like, when I felt like everything broke was when all the late night people had to go home for COVID. Wasn't that crazy?
Amazing.
You gotta see, like, they went from, they're TV people, and all of a sudden what's on TV looks like a YouTube video.
Yes.
And you go, oh my gosh.
You suck at this.
This whole time, like, I thought you guys were you're the same as me.
Yes,
but
worse.
Like worse. Yeah.
Way worse.
I'm doing it myself. You have this whole team of people, and it's like, this is all you can and then it kind of breaks the illusion. Like, it's like seeing someone run a 4-minute mile or whatever. You're like, oh, I can do this show. Like, I got this idea to like make this crazy set because I saw somebody do this like TED talk about like, I think their line was like, you can't become Kanye in your living room. Like you got to make an environment that like speaks to what the show is. It's kind of a weird thing now.
But
with
some
Kanye,
people do it very popular. They have a very popular show and they do just do it from their living room.
And that's a different appeal because that's raw. So there's an appeal to the raw, and then there's also an appeal to like, high production value, and it's different things. They both communicate a different like kind of appeal to the work. But I was always obsessed with like, there is no difference between YouTube and like Hollywood besides just a little bit of knowledge, a little bit like insider, like they kind of know tricks. There's tricks of the trade. They kind of have a little bit more money. But I was like, you can hack this together now.
Yes.
Like you can figure out ways to kind of like almost get to like a Netflix, like, so that's my dream, is to start pushing for like real like documentaries or mini documentaries on YouTube that look like they could be on a Netflix or something like that, but never go to Netflix.
Yeah.
Like never take the deal. Like never go to the producer.
Yeah.
Just always be doing it yourself.
Yeah. I think what you're saying about the late night things is so true, because I remember watching them do monologues with no audience. And I was like, who said okay to this? Why are you doing this? There's not a fucking chance in hell that this is funny or going to work. And when you see those flat, corny, late night monologue jokes with no audience, those are so fucking cringy. And you're dealing with a lot of these people that are not stand-up comics. So they don't even really, truly understand how to deliver it right. Like, they don't have the chops. What they're doing is just like reading off of a teleprompter. So a bunch of really good joke writers wrote them some stuff, and then they're playing to the audience, and the audience is like laughing, so they get this feedback, and they know how to do that. When they're just them and the camera, you're in the void now. You're in deep space. There's no one around you. And it's fucking wild to watch.
It is wild. Can you unlock, like, how different is that from, like, stand-up? I'm just, like, a casual viewer of, like, the, like, late nights. I mean, I know they say, like, applause, but is that real, like, laughter? And, like, are they, like, saying, like, hey, clap?
Oh, there's someone who's doing this. There's someone in front of the crowd. There's a warm-up guy. And generally the warm-up guy is a failed comedian or a middling comedian who's just trying to make it, and they're doing the warm-up thing as like a side gig. And there's people that are good at warm-up, and the problem with being good at warm-up is it's a profitable job, and it'll actually keep you from being good at stand-up.
Oh, you're like stuck doing
yes,
thing
you get
forever.
stuck. I've had friends that were stuck doing warm-up, and then some of them quit, and some of them didn't, and the ones that didn't are fucked. And because those shows don't even exist anymore. There's only a handful of those shows. So, like, if you see, like, how many talk shows are there? There's very few.
Yeah.
There's Colbert, there's Jimmy Kimmel, there's
Fallon.
There's a few. There's only a few.
Yeah.
And so, they stand there, and there's applause signs, and then there's producers. There's the warm-up guy that's literally telling people to applaud. They're like, okay, explaining to the people,
Yeah.
okay, when Jimmy comes out, I want a big round of applause. Let's practice this right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy Fallon. Yeah. And everybody
They
claps.
practice it.
Yes. They'll train the audience how to do it, depending upon the set. But I've seen them do that at different places. And I had a friend who was a writer in the early days of Conan. He's a buddy of mine who was a comic. And I went to see one of the very, very early Conans. So this is like, I guess it was like the 90s or the early 2000s. No, it had to be the 90s. It was the 90s.
Yeah.
And they were reading their banter between Conan and who's the other guy? Andy Richter?
Oh, Andy Richter, yeah.
They were reading off of cue cards. So they had a giant cue card. The banter was fake. So the banter, their dialogue back and forth was scripted. So they were saying, so Andy, I understand you got married and blah, 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 blah. Oh, yes, I do. And so they're reading it, and I'm watching the cards. I'm like, this is madness. Who approved this? And it was terrible. The early days of Conan, like that sort of banter was fucking. The thing about Conan is like he's this funny guy. He was a funny writer. He's a really smart guy, and he had to figure out how to do the talk show.
He figured it out.
But in the beginning, it was awful. And I watched, the audience is being cheered on. There's literal applause signs that flash to tell you when to applaud. and like, we'll be right back. Yay! And everybody claps. Is everybody really clapping that you're going to be right back? Nobody gives a fuck if you're going to be right back.
I feel like they didn't know that though. Like, I feel like media literacy has kind of gone through the roof. Like many people, I guess it's maybe everyone has cameras now. So everyone's like sort of mini producers now of their own show.
Sure.
And so they get it now. And so all of a sudden the craving for authenticity gets so much higher because now you're aware of like what everyone knows what a teleprompter is. Everybody sort of like, even though I didn't know how exactly it worked, I kind of was vaguely aware that like they kind of told you to applaud, and the laugh tracks in, sitcoms were just canned laughter. So I feel like as people realize the fakery, there's a craving for like, hey, can you do this for real? Like, can you not, I remember when I found out like none of the conversations were real. Like I was like, what?
Right.
What do you mean it's not real? Like because it's all a pretend. Like they're all pretending that you really knew about my funny boat story. And like I had this quippy, and I thought, wow, they're so charismatic. And you come to find out they've been rehearsing the story.
Yes, they go over with a producer on the phone.
And it's completely insane when you realize that. You go like, oh, it's all fake, and the illusion is sort of gone. And so now, I think one of the surprising things, but also maybe obvious in hindsight things, was why shows with no laugh track, less production, are more engaging.
Yes.
Is because there's more of a realization of, there isn't like games here. There's just two people talking. They haven't rehearsed their lines. And I mean, I came on here, there was no production notes. There was no like, hey, we want to talk about this. It was just like, hey, you want to come on? And that's all it is. And so I think
we didn't even discuss what we're going to talk about.
No.
Which is what I do with everybody. I just have them come in and talk.
Yeah. It's fascinating, and I think that's partly to do with like why people enjoy the show is that they know it's not like tricks and gimmicks. I wonder, there's like, it's funny to me as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, there's sort of like this, like the world is accelerating in two directions towards like authenticity, and then like with all the beauty filters and like the fake AI voices, it's like you can fake reality, but we also crave reality at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, people are craving real human experiences. And if you watch those late night shows, you never feel like you know that person, you never feel like you're there. But if you're just talking, and you and I are just talking, someone is like on their iPhone or whatever they're doing, they're a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, they're here in a weird way.
I always thought that it like live streaming your whole life would become big.
Well, that was the Truman Show, right?
Yeah, no, but I thought we would see it. Like, I guess you see it with Twitch streamers who like stream like 12 hours a day. Mm-hmm. But I kind of thought what would take off I was kind of surprised it didn't, was like, you just watch my whole life. Like
some people did do that for a while.
They tried
right?
it. I was kind of surprised that didn't, because I thought like eventually you'd have celebrities who their whole life would be on display, and like the authenticity of just sitting in a room with somebody with just, it's quiet.
I think people just got too weirded out by that. But wasn't there was a movie, I forget who was in the movie, but there was a movie where someone had their whole life filmed, and at the end they rejected it and decided
that's Truman Show for sure.
But Truman Show was like, that was the Jim Carrey movie, right?
Yeah,
but that was fake, right? Like he didn't know
they were filming his whole life, and he rejects it.
There was another one where the person became famous because they followed them around with cameras everywhere. And at the end of it, like, he fell in love with a girl or something, and it was over. You know, there's always some corny fucking reason why he cancels it. Do you remember? You know what I'm talking about, Jamie?
Yeah, 100%. I'm trying to figure it out. I thought for some reason Matthew McConaughey was in it, but I don't think
maybe it was Ethan Hawke or someone, like some famous person. But
it's like something TV.
Yeah, Ed TV.
Yeah, there you go.
That's it. Who was it? Who was Ed TV? But it was the kind of the premise of the film.
Yeah,
it was like
Matthew
this.
McConaughey.
It was Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, 1999.
99. So in that movie, he like gives up on everything after a while, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. See, that was it. You're live on Ed TV. So that was him, just a regular guy who became famous, living his regular life.
How crazy is it that was 99?
It is crazy.
And they kind of predict. I mean, that was just
Elizabeth
in TV
Hurley,
for a while. And
how does she's still so hot. How is she doing that? The fuck is she taking? She pulled it off. But that was the thing, is like that this would be bad. And they're sort of like saying, no one wants this. Like, imagine if you got famous this way. What a disaster. Meanwhile, then you have social media influencers who are, every single aspect of their life. They're live streaming. They're putting it on camera.
That is what Justin TV started as. It was
Yeah.
like 8 years later, though.
He literally attached a webcam. Yeah, that's right, to his baseball cap. I've talked about that before. He's really
TV
interesting.
Was the first time we live streamed. We live streamed on Justin TV in the green room of comedy clubs. So what we would do is like my buddy Brian Redband, we would go on the road together, and we thought it'd be funny to just like live stream while we were there in a green room.
Yeah.
And so we just did that just for fucking around, and it was just totally like, that's us in a green room.
It's still there.
That's hilarious.
It's on because it's turned into Twitch.
Gosh.
I think that's the Hollywood Improv, right? Is that what that is?
One of them was that. The other one was Pasadena. So it's probably
That's back in my full beard days. So we did that before the podcast itself and just for fun. And so there was like all these different versions of it that I tried out, and where I was thinking like, there's got to be a way to do something where I don't have to go to someone and say, hey, can you give me a show? And then when I saw Tom Green's show, that was what there was two things that gave me the big idea. One of them was Anthony Cumia from Opie and Anthony. He did this thing called Live from the Compound, where he had his house set up with a green room in his basement. And Anthony's a psycho, so he was like singing karaoke while holding a machine gun. It was so crazy because he had all this money, right?
Yeah.
He's very wealthy, so he had like a full like production set. Like he built a set in his basement. And I was like, this is wild. He can just do it. But he was already on this Opie and Anthony show. And so he decided for fun with his friends, like he had, a fucking, like a full bar down there with like Guinness on tap. And they were just drinking and being ridiculous. And he was doing a talk show and just having fun, just being silly with his friends. And I was like, I could do that. And so we started doing something like that with a laptop. And when I went to Tom Green's house, Tom Green had turned his home into a television studio, and it was on the internet. And this was 2007, somewhere around then. Mm-hmm. And so he had like these fucking cables running through his living room, and then he had a server room and everything like that. And he takes me on this tour. I'm like, this is wild. And there's a video of me sitting next to Tom Green, because he had it set up just like a regular talk show.
Yeah.
Where he had a desk like Johnny Carson, and he was sitting there, and he had screens, and this is me explaining why I think this is going to be the future.
Live, for sure they'd be assholes. There's no super cool hecklers. They don't exist.
No, this is not about that, but that's me. But there is one video of me like figuring it out.
Yeah, that's like a live stream show.
Yes. That's it. So this
I
is like
think this is awesome.
Thank you, man. See, no, I mean,
This is the craziest thing ever.
it really is different,
Yeah.
than television.
This
or
is
anything.
way better.
It's like radio, but it's like television, and the genre is different because we can sit here and ramp. There isn't that time constraint. There isn't that pressure. I mean, we want to keep it moving.
Well, not
obviously,
only
but,
that, there's not a corporate pressure. You can't just express yourself because you're expressing yourself to someone who's selling advertising space.
That's
You just
crazy.
need to keep doing this.
You called this out.
We need to figure out how you make money from this.
Yeah, I've got a lot of neat ideas I want to talk to you about because I know
Isn't
you're
that
into this
wild?
computer thing. Take a little bit from the big wigs, right?
Dude, this is,
In their fancy suits.
They don't need to exist.
Yeah.
They're non-creative people. We talked about this before the show. They're non-creative people who are controlling creative things.
Yeah.
And they want to have their input. Just
Together.
abandon them.
Oh.
Abandon ship.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow. That
Called it.
Yeah, you kind of did. I just realized why no one live streams their whole life. I just realized it. I remember people were trying, and like they would go out and they'd call it IRL live streaming. And you go to like the store. You know what the problem was?
What?
People would swat you.
Oh.
So they'd like call in a bomb threat or something.
Oh God.
So the problem is you get enough people watching live. One of them is a psychopath. Or,
Right.
or they just want to, they want to get attention. Who knows why?
Well,
And
Tim
they're a
Pool has
kid.
that problem. He's been swatted. Like, how many times has Tim Pool been swatted? Multiple times, like many times. It's a real issue with him.
It's an issue with live streamers though, because you get the
Yes.
reaction.
Right,
Because if I'm shooting a
right.
show and something happens, I'll never put it out. You don't say anything. But
Right.
with a live show, because it's it's just happening in the moment, you get to see them put their hands up and the whole nonsense, and then they get their little like you get mad about it, it stops the whole show, and they know they had that impact.
Of course, yeah.
So that's what's bad about like
That's
IRL.
only one thing. The other thing is like, what is life then? Is life a performance?
People aren't going to let that stop them, though.
But are you capable of being so in the moment that you are just yourself, no matter what? Even if cameras are on, you would behave and exist the same way you would if there's no cameras on.
No, I don't think most people would be capable of that. I mean, I enjoy keeping my private life private, my public life public. I think that's pretty normal, and I think things get weird when everything's online. Your family's online. I've seen people who they put out everything. They put out their kids, their
they do it for the clicks.
That's what's weird.
And you're also not asking the kids. Your kids are going to get famous when they're babies, and then they don't have any say in it. And then as they get older, people know them. And then you run into all sorts of security issues because of that too. And
yeah,
it's just not wise. And there's a lot of people that don't think. They just do it. And, you know.
It's it's also like an opportunity. Like kids channels were big on YouTube where they were running these family channels is what they called them, because you'd watch the family together.
Yeah.
And then you'd get like your kids would like to watch their kids. And people grew multi-million-dollar brands on the back of that. And it's like by that point, it's too late to stop because you got a mortgage. You know, you're depending on that money coming in.
Yeah.
And so you can't stop. Your kid better get on a camera. I just want to know, like, do you tell your kid, like, get on your mark? Like, hey, can you react to that again? Can you help me with this thumbnail? Like, that's crazy.
And then if the kid becomes famous when they're young, they're in so much trouble. There's very few people that ever survive being famous when they're young. Very few. They all come out fucked up. It's not a normal way to develop. Fame is a drug that you have to develop a tolerance for. And if you don't develop that tolerance, you actually develop with that drug. Like instead of like experiencing adversity, instead of developing your personality, you know, like to like realize like what is wrong with the way I communicate? Why do people get mad at me? Why do people like me? Like you sort it out as a human. It's how you interact with the world. It's why kids, you know, pick on each other and they're mean to each other and they're figuring out how to communicate and be social. If you're 5 fucking years old and you're already famous, you're in deep shit. And they're all in deep shit. I've met quite a few of them now. I've interviewed quite a few of them on this podcast. I've met quite a few of them in real life, and they're all fucked. Everyone who becomes famous when they're a child is fucked. I don't know. I mean,
I was going to ask, like, do we know of anybody who, just navigating like mega fame in general? I don't think I've seen many people do it without kind of getting eaten a little bit.
Yeah, you get eaten a little bit. You need to do something to mitigate that. You need to just do something real. And if you do not do something real, then you're like the responses you get, if that's what you're living for, and if your worth and your value is based on people's attention to you and people's interaction with you, that's not good. It's very bad. And that's why, I mean, it also, like, how many of them are narcissists to begin with, and how much of that narcissistic tendency gets fed by being famous?
It's just like I think with my phone, I've sort of given myself some like low grade ADHD. I think too much of the like attention online makes you into a narcissist, even if you weren't one originally, or it has the potential to do so if you don't actively mitigate it. One of the strangest things is like when you get hot online, everybody wants to be your friend. All of a sudden, these people come out from the woodwork, and all of a sudden, everyone wants to be your friend. And then when you're not hot again, now it's like you don't exist. And that's a bad way to experience life, that your whole identity and your whole friendship base and everything's wrapped up with how you're doing online. And like, I know for me at least, I try to just segment my life to where the online thing is online and all my real friends are just in my city, just like kind of regular people, have different jobs. I think it's kind of important to detach yourself so that when things aren't going well, it's fine. When things are going well, it's fine. There's like a stabilizing something. I feel like
you're describing Hollywood. You know, you're describing the problems with Hollywood. In Hollywood, when you make it, like if you're in a movie and you're doing well, everybody loves you. Oh, CoffeeZilla, come on through the red carpet. Let's go. CoffeeZilla is hot now. We want to put him in this movie, and they want to put him on this show. We want to do this. And then when you're not, no one wants to talk to you.
Doesn't that break you psychologically, though?
Of course, that's why they're all crazy. I mean, in Hollywood, it's even worse, right? Because you don't get to choose your own destiny. Like you've developed your own show and you've created your own thing. You haven't been chosen. In Hollywood, the problem is you're being chosen for everything. So you're being cast in these things. So you have to deal with people that approve you or pick you. So you're formulating your personality based on whatever the zeitgeist is, whatever the ideology of most of the producers are. Like if all of Hollywood was right wing, right? If all the producers and all the executives and all the studios were all very conservative and right wing, all actors would be conservative. They would all be pro-life. They would all be First Amendment, Second Amendment happy. They would all carry guns. It would be 100% compliance. The same way it is with left wing. They're not necessarily people that think that way. They think that way because that is the way to fit in and be successful. So you take people that already have this exorbitant need for attention, and then you bring them into an environment where they have to be chosen. So you have to figure out what gets me chosen. So you form your ideas and opinions based on what's going to be the most successful. It's a mating strategy.
It's weird because the fact you need to be chosen sort of makes you play the same game that you don't like, which is you have to go to the power brokers and you have to suck up to them the same way people suck up to you when you're successful. You have to go suck up to the successful people.
Yeah.
And now you're playing the same game where you're going to the people who are the decision makers and you're trying to woo them and pretend you're their friend.
That's why when those
weird.
people do make it and they do get pushed through that red carpet, come on through, Tom Cruise, they're all fucking crazy. And a lot of them treat other people like shit because they want to let you know that they're a part of the chosen class. So that's like this thing about certain celebrities being assholes to regular people. Like, why do they treat people like that? Well, the same reason why royalty does it. You know, like when you see the queen, you're supposed to bow. Like this is how it goes down. That's why they became the queen in the first place. That's why they became a star in the first place. Because they want to be that person that just gets fucking exorbitant amounts of love and attention. It's very unhealthy.
And it's good, I think, that it's now becoming possible that you can be like a Mr. Beast or something and not be in Hollywood. He's like in North Carolina or whatever.
Yes.
And he can just do his own thing. He can start his own, and he's as big of a brand as anybody.
Yep.
And it's like, it just doesn't matter. He doesn't have to like kind of play the same games. I think that is sometimes I think changes in technology are like neutral. Like it's like kind of like you win some, you lose some. I think that is a distinct change for the better, that we've kind of decentralized Hollywood a little bit. And it's like you can just start your own show. We talked about being subject to the gatekeepers, but even subject to that like kind of mentality of like everything's about success and fame. And that's the currency of Hollywood. But
it's also the motivation. Like, what is the motivation to do it in the first place? A lot of the people that are in Hollywood, their motivation is purely for attention. Their motivation is purely to become successful and famous. Whereas his motivation seems to be to have fun and to do things with the money that is actually altruistic and good and beneficial and, charitable. He's a really good guy. Like, that's one of the appeals. And also, there's no one like filtering him. That's who he is. That's that guy. He's very smart and very ambitious, but he's also not really money hungry, and he dumps most of the money back into the production of his show.
He's legit. I mean, I have a lot of people you meet behind the scenes, and they're different. It's like the same guy you meet, and that's always a huge letdown. I've had so many examples of that, but he was one of the first, like not first, but there are a lot of guys, but the biggest stars, I guess, are the ones that are most like you. You're like, you're a bit different. But he was like, when I met him, we talked a bit, and it's just like, dude, this guy's legit. Like he's the real deal.
Yeah, that is who you get. The guy that you see that when he's doing those videos with his friends, joking around and making them do stunts and pranks and all the different little games that he comes up with for where people can win money. That's really who he is.
YouTube's lucky because it could be anybody. Like they don't select who is like on top, and they're fortunate because it could just be like some super narcissistic like monster.
I don't know if it would work. Because
Oh, you're saying it's selected for like,
yeah, because a super narcissistic monster, I don't think would create something that's relatable.
That's a good point. Yeah, could they get some? You had there was this huge YouTube channel. I think they still might be the biggest, like T Series or something. There's some random corporation. I think there are ways to growth hack it maybe, but you're right. You wouldn't create such a brand.
Right.
You couldn't fake it forever.
You couldn't fake authenticity. I don't think you can. I think after a while it gets exposed and people realize you're full of shit.
Yeah, the longer you talk, especially on the longer if you're in little sound bites, you can pull it off for a little bit, but the longer you talk, the more it gets shown.
Unless you just have amazing stamina for bullshit.
Have you ever talked to somebody like that? I'm sure, right? Like statistically, there has to be someone who came on the show and you're like, oh my gosh, like after like an hour?
That they're full of shit?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's quite a few people that I talk to that are full of shit. And it's unfortunate. Like, sometimes people, like, I've had people come on where I don't realize it until like an hour and a half, 2 hours in. And then I start asking them certain questions, and you realize, like, there's something fucking funny about your answers here. Like, this is not. And then we'll research them after the show, like, oh, good Lord. It's an issue, It's like, and there's also people that just, whatever their motivations are, they're not good. Like, what is their motivation to do a show in the first place? Like, is their motivation just to try to make the most amount of money, or are they trying to do a good show? Like, if you're trying to do a good show and you keep working at it, it'll get better. Go watch my early shows; they fucking suck. You get better if you're actually just trying to do it and get better at it. But if your motivation is just to make money, like somewhere along the line, usually you slide off.
I think most people who like want to make money just go into finance. Like,
yeah, but they also want attention. They want money,
they want that
and they want
currency,
attention. And then once you've gotten the attention, that's the thing about fame, right? Like, if you go to a store and there's a security guard at that store, you don't think, look at this poor fuck, he's a security guard at a store. You just think he's a guy. Like, hey, man, what's up? How you doing? You don't treat him badly. But if you go there and it's Will Smith has lost all his money. Now he's a security guard at the store. Look at this fucking loser. Let's go visit Will Smith. Ah! And you laugh at him. How much you make here, Will?
What, are you going to slap me to kick me out?
Yeah. You would be free to do that. And that was the case with Gary Coleman. You remember Gary Coleman?
Oh,
the tiny guy. He used to have that show Different Strokes. And he was famous on television, but then I don't know what happened, lost all his money, and he was a security guard at a studio. And they hired him to be the guy that, like, when people drive through, they meet him, and then people realized he was there. And this was like before social media. So this was like early on. And it was a real problem because people would go there just to mock him and make fun of him. Because someone who used to be famous and now is not is a loser. But someone who's just never been famous is just a person. It's very interesting.
But it's so weird because everyone who achieves any level of notoriety knows how temporary, and more than even the audience know. They know that there's a shelf life on everything.
Yeah.
Very few people make it an entire career. Like, I'm always thinking, like, it's gonna be over, like, next month.
Right.
Because that is the nature of, especially online fame, is even more fleeting than the old days of movie stars. It's like, it's even less. So I don't understand why that is. It feels like I don't really buy into that. I mean, I think it's just people are people, and you have your moment in like the spotlight for one reason or another. It's usually not about who you are. It's just you're saying something at the time that resonates, and things don't resonate forever.
Right, but think of your perspective and where you're coming from. You're a 28-year-old guy who is doing really well right now. So you are in the spotlight, and you haven't had a lot of time outside of it. I mean, how old were you when you started your show?
I think I got actual attention maybe 25, 26.
Yeah, so for the last 3 years. So you didn't go through like this long, terrible period of fucking hating
darkness
life.
And depression.
Yeah, so a lot of people fucking hate life, and they look at someone who is a movie star or a television star like Gary Coleman, and they go, wow, how the fuck, that guy, how's he doing it? He's got a fucking Ferrari, he's got a this, he's got a that. And then when they don't have it, like, ha ha, you're less than one of them. You're less than a normal person because you're a person that used to be free of it. You're a person that used to be. We love a story of some movie star that spent all their money and now they're broke and crazy. I remember, who's the woman? Was it Margot Kidder? Is that her name? The woman from Superman? There was a woman she played Lois Lane in the early Supermans with Christopher Reeve, and she went crazy. And like she lost all of her teeth, and she was like, someone found her in the bushes somewhere. Like it was like real sad, like real mental illness problems. And I remember there was this deep fascination with this person who was a movie star at one point in time, and then had completely fallen apart. Like, what was the story with her? Do you remember the story with her, Jamie?
You nailed as much as I remembered. Yeah.
Yeah, something happened. She had some sort of a mental health breakdown, and I'm sure some of that had to do with fame and society and acting and just the world that they live in of the movie star. And then also the women's world of a movie star, which is a fucking much more brutal world.
That's brutal.
Because, I was talking about Elizabeth Hurley. She's the rare that stays hot. Like she's hot and she's like fucking 80 years old.
She had an accident, I guess, that left her paralyzed.
Oh my gosh.
She lost some money and had some issues with.
Oh boy.
I will say, like, one of the challenges is you kind of have to. You don't know how long you're going to stay relevant, and then if you don't make the money, then now what do you do? I guess is the point. And then so if you haven't set yourself up, then I guess and a lot of these people, they think it's going to be lasting forever because their agents tell them it's going to last forever.
Yeah.
So they just spend all their money, and then especially if they don't pick up any skills. One of the things like with actors is all you learn is acting. I mean, one of the interesting things now, which is kind of fascinating about like modern, like, people who grew up on TikTok and like the YouTube era, is you kind of have to learn like marketing. You have to learn video editing. You have to learn. So you can pick up skills to where you're never going to be completely, I know a lot of YouTubers who now work for other YouTubers because they stopped being relevant, but they're like, I understand content. I understand how this stuff works. They're not just a face. They're not just like a pretty face. They have actual tangible skills beyond that. That is an issue, though. I mean, I can understand why that's a problem.
I think here's a big issue with someone like yourself. What if YouTube goes away? That's the real issue. Like,
sure.
If you're relegated to one platform, and that platform, what if the platform decides for whatever strange reason? Like, what if they get pressure from someone who you've outed?
Right.
And they come up with some bogus reason to strike your account and delete your account. That's a real issue. Yeah. Like if you're beholden to one company, that can be a real problem.
It is a huge problem. Right now, the number one video sharing site in the world is basically YouTube, and that's essentially it. I mean, there's not really anyone else. There's like alternatives like Rumble, but like that's kind of, I don't know why it's perceived as kind of like a right-wing thing. So it's
sort of, but then Russell Brand's on it, and
I'll say
Glenn Greenwald's on
let's
it.
say political commentary thing. I mean, I don't know if like mainstream, like just like random creators are doing really well. I don't know. Maybe it's there, maybe it's not. I think you're pointing out though a very good point, which is like as much as we talk about the decentralization of gatekeepers, there is one gatekeeper to rule them all still. For someone like me, that is YouTube. I mean, I would like to think that, throughout you learn enough about making stuff, making content that you could move. I would probably try to transition into some like production role. Yeah. Start a production company. I mean,
I think you would still enjoy doing the thing you do.
Oh,
you'd figure out a way to do it. You'd have to figure out a way to do it somewhere else, but also you'd have to figure out a way to bring. Like, here's the other problem, social media, right? Social media is where you use to promote the thing that you're doing on YouTube. So what if that goes away? What if something, like, we have to assume that if Twitter was on the verge of bankruptcy, apparently, when Elon bought it, it was fast-tracking to bankruptcy. What if someone incompetent bought it and then ran it into the ground? Then it doesn't exist anymore. And then all those people that use Twitter to promote their businesses, stand-up comedians that use it to promote their tour dates, like they're fucked now.
It's gone.
Now you don't have that vehicle, and so your ability to access your fans is completely gone.
Yeah, you don't own any of your data. So you don't own any of your subscribers' data. You don't own any of that stuff yourself. It's a real
issue.
It's a real challenge. I mean, one of the things, they also control what you can talk about. So when I was doing, my first show, I kind of had this video where I wanted to explore smoking and vapes through the lens of the FDA and how they regulated vaping, and they sort of went after vaping. But it's a problem, but it's also seems like it's a lot healthier than just smoking. Cigarettes are the worst thing in the world for any human to be doing, although it's very fun. But they're horrible for you. And so I did a video about that. YouTube age gated it. So now not only no monetization, which that, it's acceptable. It's just kind of the cost of being on YouTube. You sometimes get demonetized, whatever. The reach was killed. So now this video, which everyone loved, nobody can watch, or you won't get the recommended feed.
There's also a problem that now you're in a specific category. I don't know how their algorithm works, but if you do get flagged for something, you could get put in a problematic category.
Right.
Which makes you shadow banned or less likely to be recommended. Right.
So I think I think they say their official stance is they do it on a video by video basis. I don't actually know. I mean, it's kind of hard to figure out, what's true, what's not. But I will say, did I ever do a video about that again?
No. Yeah, you self-censor.
Yeah.
And that's what happens to people.
Big problem.
That happened during COVID with a lot of people. People wanted to talk about issues like the lab leak hypothesis.
Usually they're important issues too.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Is they're controversial, so they are important.
Right.
But it's I understand YouTube's perspective. They have I don't know how many, maybe they're supporting hundreds of thousands of people's livelihood.
At
least. They're like, do we want to risk it all so somebody can say some wild stuff?
Right. And then the advertisers pull out, they lose X percentage of the revenue, and then whoever that producer is that allowed that channel